Welcome back. You're watching the People's Reset Mexico 2025. Let's get some noise in here. Woo! We're back with empowering technology. This is the second half of day 2. For those of you watching at home, we're super excited to have you with us. We got some amazing speakers up next. I'm going to be introducing Aaron Day in a second. Of course, myself, I'm going to be wrapping up the day, and then we've got the panel later on today. And then for those in person, this is why it's so important to come in person. We're going to be doing an in-person crypto exchange. So anyone looking to buy and sell crypto will be able to, with people in this room, people we trust, people that we're vibing with. So the topic that we're going to talk about next is a very, really important one. Because although people have, they're not scared about it so much anymore with Trump's executive order on central bank digital currencies. But in reality, the infrastructure has already been set up for this programmable money. It's already out there in the form of Bitcoin, in the form of Tether, and most people are using it. Most people are using their crypto in a completely know your customer manner. So these transactions are being watched, and they also can be shut down. Accounts can be shut down. And we've seen that from people who were caught up in the protests and in other places. So our next speaker has been talking about CBDCs and has some of the best research on the subject that got me aware of this last year. So I'd like to welcome the CEO of the Daylight Freedom Foundation, Aaron Day. Give him a round of applause.
Good afternoon. To start, I want to thank Derek and Miriam for inviting me to this event. My wife and I travel all around the country. We've been to 24 states and are now starting the international tour, warning people about CBDCs while teaching people about alternatives, which is the use of privacy coins. And it's great to finally be in a place where people are proactive, awake, and looking for solutions. Because to be honest, most of the time we're talking to people and they're looking for white knights or politicians. So just some housekeeping. This is a 4-hour talk condensed to 40 minutes. And because of the developments in the last couple of weeks, half of it's new. So there probably won't be time for questions, but happy to talk to everybody afterwards. There will be numerous QR codes and websites. I encourage you to visit those throughout the talk, and happy to help people get onboarded with privacy coins at the meetup afterwards. There's a 2-point agenda. The first part is the black pill, which is the current state of CBDCs. The second part is how to use the white pill, which is how to use privacy coins as an alternative. And to give you a little background about how we got into this, in 2019, yeah, I'm aware. In 2019, I was focused on, thanks to my beautiful and brilliant wife, I was focusing more on raising my consciousness, exploring meditation. We were traveling all over the world, going to meditation retreats. And I put together this video, which is kind of what we had as a group mind movie about, maybe how to create a voluntary, peaceful, caring society focused on raising consciousness. So I had done political activism before and took a 5-year rest. We were focusing more on these types of things. And then COVID hit. And I wasn't surprised. We weren't surprised so much about COVID or the vaccines as we were about what was going on at the intersection of the cryptocurrency community and the liberty community. I'm a part member of the Free State Project. I moved to New Hampshire in 2009 and got involved with cryptocurrency early in 2012. And all of a sudden, around 2020, I was noticing that a lot of my friends who were promoting completely legal solutions like Library, which is a decentralized, censorship-resistant version of YouTube, or Ian Freeman, who'd introduced a lot of people to cryptocurrency, their businesses were being destroyed by the federal government and or they were being thrown in prison. And I wanted to look at, well, why is this happening to this specific group of people? And then I stumbled on Joe Biden's Executive Order 14067, which he signed in March of 2022. This executive order authorized the US to pursue a CBDC, but more importantly and less appreciated, initiate a whole of government regulation of the crypto industry. And boy, was it a whole of government approach. This is where all of the debanking came from. This is why it's almost impossible to use a cryptocurrency exchange. This is why people who were working on privacy technology were finding themselves in prison. And so once I figured out how big a threat this was, and also how accelerated CBDCs were, I thought, well, this is the biggest single threat to human liberty. Once you have global, programmable, digital money, it's the gateway to social credit systems, digital IDs, vaccine passports, and all of it. So I wrote a book called The Final Countdown, and I even ran for president, not thinking that I could influence things from a public policy perspective. In fact, my slogan was ditch the dollar, boycott public health, exit big tech, get your kids out of government indoctrination centers. So there was no aspect of voting for me that would actually fix anything. But I thought I could use it as a platform in the election. And it was useful in one respect. Vivek Ramaswamy read my book. We had multiple conversations about it. And he actually pushed Trump to come out against CBDCs in my home state of New Hampshire for the first time because it was a contested race in New Hampshire. So it had some effect. But for the last week, I keep on getting messages from people saying, hey, Trump won. This thing that you've been fighting, this executive order and all this, we don't have to worry about CBDCs anymore, right? And it couldn't be further from the truth. And while I'm grateful for the fact that 14067 was repealed, the effects of the lawfare from that executive order are still being felt by dozens of people, and I'll talk about that. But on top of that, you're actually seeing an acceleration of CBDC development in other places. Europe came out when Trump said, well, the US isn't going to do a CBDC. Now Europe is going to accelerate their CBDC. One thing that I learned through this process of studying all of the CBDCs going on globally, I wanted to actually take a deeper technical look at how money currently works. And I wrote an article about this for Brownstone, if you're not familiar with the Brownstone Institute, I'm a fellow there as well. And what I found is that the United States already has a CBDC. Most countries already have a CBDC. The way money is created in the US is the federal government issues an IOU to the Federal Reserve, and they create the money out of thin air in an Oracle database. So all of the checks that the federal government is spending for all these wars all over the world are coming out of an Oracle database controlled by the Federal Reserve. Our money is already programmable. Anybody that has a health savings account or a flexible spending account, that is programmable digital money. This is money that you can only spend at certain times and for certain healthcare expenses, and even from only certain retailers. And so that we don't need an upgrade to our system to have programmable money. Our money is already trackable. I've outlined 13 different federal programs involved in monitoring US transactions. I'm not going to go through all of them, but I'll leave it at this. The IRS is using AI to work with your banks to analyze your transactions. The NSA is doing bulk data collection on financial transactions. And through the Patriot Act and some other things, they can come in, shut down your bank account, and issue what's called a national security letter where you can't talk about it to anyone, including a lawyer. People are worried about censorship. Well, we've had debanking for a long time. I was debanked for the first time in 2009. And it's, and most of my friends have been debanked for one reason or another, whether it was Operation Choke Point 1 or the recent Operation Choke Point 2, which was part of Biden's executive order, where if you were in a crypto business, they were going to do everything that they could to shut off your bank account. But it's not just people in crypto. Melania Trump, Barron Trump, Nick Fuentes, Dr. Joseph Mercola, Kanye West, and others have all been debanked. So none of this requires a blockchain or any change to the technical infrastructure. So we already have programmable, censorable money. And this is the state of the world globally. There are, well, I have to update this now. I've been saying there are 134 countries representing 98% of the global GDP at some phase of developing a CBDC. I have to change that. It's now 133 countries representing 83% of the global GDP working on CBDCs actively. This is still a problem. The US is only less than 15% of the global GDP. So Trump saying that the US is out of the CBDC game doesn't change the global picture, doesn't change the march towards technocracy. And nor does it actually even stop the development of CBDCs in the United States. I go through this in my book and in some of the articles that I've written. The United States has been working on CBDCs since 2019. They've been developing these. They're actually pretty far advanced. So when you hear somebody in the news or the head of the Federal Reserve say, well, we don't even know if we want to look at this, understand they've already built them and they already work. And so the threat isn't over. There are a number of different ways that the US can get a CBDC. One is through what are called stable coins. And this is a new popular trend, and Trump's actually been pushing stable coins. The new AI and crypto czar, which I don't understand how we have that position, is saying that the next wave of development here are stable coins. Well, I will tell you, JP Morgan having a digital programmable currency is indistinguishable from the Federal Reserve having a programmable digital currency from the perspective of our concern from a surveillance, privacy, and tracking perspective. There's also Project Hamilton that's been in the works since 2019. This is a collaboration between the Federal Reserve of Boston and MIT that has participation from one of the Bitcoin core developers. This is a retail CBDC that can do 1.8 million transactions per second. To put this in perspective, Bitcoin does 7 transactions per second. The Federal Reserve itself does about 1,000 transactions per second. So this pilot that they've been working on for years, the reason you would want that much transactional capability is if you were tying people's transactions to behavior and you needed something that was tied to minute behavior in social credit systems. And then there are private stable coins such as Tether, which I could do a whole talk on that, but it would not surprise me to find out that that turns into the largest financial disaster in the history of the world, to be honest. One thing that I want to say is a lot of people say, well, okay, let's use cash. But it's important to understand cash is just, it's still fiat. It doesn't solve the underlying problem. If you're using cash, you're still supporting central bank tyranny. You're still supporting the wars all over the world. You're still supporting the technocrats and the oligarchs using this fiat currency to basically create poverty all over the world as well. So cash is not a solution. But one thing people need to know is that they're even working on tracking physical cash as well. Physical cash is just a paper token that represents a liability in a database. And so they're already working on nanotechnology, RFID chips. I mean, there are already serial numbers on cash. So if you think cash is the answer, think again. We have to separate money and state. And the biggest fear that we have right now, and the biggest concern is complacency. I've been talking about this, again, for over 2 years, but just since Trump came out, it's actually been a bit of a curse. When he came out in New Hampshire against CBDCs, people stopped focusing on the issue. People now somehow think that magically this central bank digital currency threat is gone, and it's not. So it actually makes things more difficult, not less, because there was, a year and a half ago, people were really waking up to this. And people were finally starting to learn about the Federal Reserve and start to try alternative currencies. And now this is something that people are starting to ignore, which is problematic. I mentioned before that while Trump rescinded this executive order, he did not rescind the effects of the executive order. So there are hundreds of companies that are still facing the lawfare under Biden's executive order. I'm not going to go through all of them. I'm going to focus on one person in particular. Are any of you familiar with Roger Ver? So Roger, I learned about Bitcoin in 2012 from Roger. So he was known as Bitcoin Jesus. None of what's going on with crypto would be going on right now if it weren't for him. He was the first retailer to accept Bitcoin. He was the first investor in the Bitcoin ecosystem. He invested in the first cryptocurrency exchange. He's invested in other cryptocurrencies. His primary focus from day one is that we need money that is separate from state to spread freedom all over the world. And that's been his primary focus. But he left the United States, and I bring these guys up for one simple reason. I'm focused on exit and build, but one of the things that has come up throughout this process, because I have multiple friends in prison now, is you can't exit and build inside a cage. So I found myself spending a lot of time advocating for some of these people. Roger is facing 109 years in federal prison for, they're saying, tax fraud And I won't go through all the details of the case, but needless to say, it was completely politically motivated. He paid his taxes. He has all the documentation. And he's actually put all this information online. Roger was targeted, and they decided to accelerate this case because this issue goes back to 2014. They didn't convene a grand jury and indict him until 2024. They waited for 10 years. They waited for Executive Order 14067. So when I saw that Roger was arrested, most people thought, oh, it's just a tax thing. The government's trying to get their money. The reality is they have not offered Roger the ability to settle. They haven't told him how much he owes. And he has been stuck in Spain for almost 10 months waiting for extradition to the United States. And originally was thrown into the same prison John McAfee died in. So Ian Freeman, another friend of mine, Free Stater, my wife and I went to his sentencing hearing. He's in federal prison for 8 years for selling Bitcoin without a license, even though he actually had a letter from an attorney saying he didn't need a license. There are common themes in all of these stories, which these are people that are at the intersection of liberty and crypto, and they took the step knowing that it's an unknown territory to get legal advice, and they still ended up either in prison or with their businesses being destroyed. Joe Rotes started a company called Dragon Chain. It's known as America's Blockchain. It was a spin out of Disney. The SEC came in and said, oh no, you sold your tokens illegally. It was an illegal investment contract. It wasn't even an investment contract. They were tokens that you buy to use his platform. He was targeted because his platform empowered liberty and for the people to be able to create apps on the internet, on the blockchain. And this was really wild. Talked to this guy named Steven Nerioff, who was one of the original founders of Ethereum, was the original lawyer behind it. I won't go through all the details other than to say in 2019, the DOJ fabricated an extortion case against Steven. 12 FBI employees came to his house armed, arrested him, threw him in a van, showed him 2 pages of names, and said, unless you get us information that leads to a conviction on multiple people on this list, you'll never see your kids again. On the list, Roger Ver, Naomi Brockwell, Patrick Byrne, Bruce Fenton. These are all people in the Liberty crypto community. This was 2019. The DOJ was manufacturing cases to get information about people at the intersection of liberty and crypto. The DOJ ended up dropping their case. Steven is now suing the federal government for $9.8 billion. So I want to show this video about Roger real quick.
I grew up in the U.S. and I see all these people like, yeah, nuke everybody in the Middle East and kill them all. And then they have the former Secretary of State Madeleine Albright on 60 Minutes, one of the most popular news shows in the U.S. And they ask her, they said, like, there's reports that more than 500,000 Iraqi children have died as a direct result of U.S. sanctions. And she looks back at her with a straight face and she goes, it was a really tough decision, but I think that it was worth it.
You know, is the price worth it?
I think this is a very hard choice, but we think the price is worth it.
Worth murdering 500,000 kids because of what the government did? And I apologize for crying, but it just disgusts me from my core when I see government people murdering people around the world. It's not just theoretical. These are real people with real lives. And Bitcoin has the power to undermine everything they're doing to people around the world. And I'm sorry for shouting, but it just disgusts me what these people in government do. And they do it through central banking and through the control of the money supply, and Bitcoin takes that away from them.
So that is Roger's consistent message. This has been Roger's message since 2012. It's the same message if you saw him on Tucker Carlson just a few months ago. So we've been working, there's a community-based project to try to get a pardon for Roger. And I encourage you all, wait for the, if you can pull up the slides again. I will say, and I'm kind of on a bad note, Elon Musk recently tweeted, Roger Ver gave up his US citizenship, no pardon for Ver, membership has its privileges. But Elon Musk is not president of the United States, and he is, frankly, the technocrat that's the final boss that we're going to be fighting anyway. So we don't care about what Roger said, or about what Elon says. But I would ask if you could please help, and this is one of those QR codes, go to freerogernow.org or scan this QR code. There's an open letter where you can sign your name to support Roger. It does help. This really helped with Russ Ulbricht. He got over 600,000 signatures, and so I really encourage you to do that. It would mean a lot. I'm going to walk through this. I've created a tyranny index for CBDCs and a freedom index, and I'll go through this really quickly in the interest of time. I actually wrote this article called 50 Shades of Central Bank Digital Tyranny. And, in essence, we're already at, if you wanted to look at this as a DEFCON system, we're already at kind of level 3. We're not even at level 1. Our money's already digital. It's already tracked. It can get much worse. The end state of technocrats is a complete digital surveillance system with one global digital currency backed by energy credits. If you study technocracy, you'll know that's one of the big things they've been looking for since the 1930s, is to create an energy credit-based system and flip from a price-based system. And you don't have to believe me that this is their goal. This is an actual Doconomy branded and UN branded MasterCard. This is a MasterCard that people voluntarily signed up for from 2019 to 2022 that tracks your carbon and shuts off when you have reached your limit. They have been building this infrastructure for years. You can go to MasterCard's partner site for their green initiatives. There are over 150 companies that they're already working with to track carbon credits. On the solution side, that's the black pill side. On the solution side, there is a way out of this. And this is kind of a freedom index for how we might defeat CBDCs. And I have to say one quick thing, the way to defeat CBDCs is to stop using government money. You have to exit fiat completely. There is no solution here that involves continuing to use government money. But the dimensions that are important are, is it private? Is cash available in the system? Is crypto allowed? Or is it regulated out of existence? And how much surveillance is there? And right now I'd say we're at kind of this middle level. Now, you basically, whenever you use a crypto exchange, you have to go through and give biometric information. Whenever you pull your information off of an exchange, that information is going to the IRS. And there had been previously a big push against privacy and privacy coins, although that might be softening a bit. So I'm going to tell you, so what is the opposite of surveillance? The opposite of surveillance is privacy. And so this is critical to understand. Bitcoin, Ethereum, Tether, they're all trackable. In fact, Bitcoin I would call slow, expensive, non-fungible digital surveillance gold. So it is not going to be a solution to CBDCs. I actually don't even think it's a good, store of value, but I'm not giving investment advice. Ethereum is also trackable, and Tether is also trackable, probably not even backed one-to-one. And it can also be frozen. So Tether's already working with international law enforcement to be able to freeze those transactions. So what I use and what I recommend are Zano, which is I have this, the revolution will be tokenized. Zano is a privacy coin that also allows you to tokenize and trade other assets. And I'll get to that. I'm actually creating a gold-backed privacy stablecoin using Zano. Everything will be tokenized moving forward. Stocks, bonds, your home. The technocrats have been working alongside these CBDC projects on how to tokenize all of our other assets so that we will truly own nothing. They're working on tokenizing everything, and that is a way to basically lose control of not just our money, but all of our assets. The opposite of that system is to use privacy tokens, to start tokenizing and trading our assets privately. Monero is the leading, by far, privacy coin, and it's what I use the most day to day. And I want to mention something called Confidential Layer. Confidential Layer is a technology that will actually allow you to take your Bitcoin, Bitcoin Cash, and Ethereum and bridge it into Zano so that you can actually spend it privately. So that should be, they've actually built the technology. It should be launching in the next couple of weeks. So I'll go quickly, how I've lived without a bank account since 2019. And again, for reference, you can go to daylightfreedom.org. I keep a running updated list of what I'm using. And by the way, this changes. My presentation today is different than it was 6 months ago and completely different than a year ago. So, and you'll see on that site which wallets I use, which exchanges. And in addition to crypto, I also use gold and gold backs, which I won't have time to go into today. The wallet that I use the most that I recommend to people is Cake Wallet. Within one wallet, you can buy crypto, swap for other cryptos, buy gift certificates that you can use to purchase things at retail locations, and manage multiple cryptocurrencies. This is a list of the cryptocurrencies, but what's important is Zano is being added. In fact, there's a public beta version of it. It already works. And so, you know, this one wallet is the only wallet that has both Monero and Zano in it, but it also has Bitcoin, Ethereum, and others. And this is just an example of how you can actually, within the wallet, buy crypto for fiat using a variety of different methods. If you're starting your journey of getting out of fiat into crypto, you can swap one cryptocurrency for another. And then they have this thing called Cake Pay, where you can buy gift certificates. So I can buy a gift certificate with Monero, and it's completely not tracked. I get a gift certificate that comes to an email address, and then I can spend it right then and there. And I can specify the exact amount, so I don't have to buy a $50 or $100 gift certificate. If it's the total is $37.89, I can actually get a $38 gift certificate. And as an example, I actually did this. I bought my kids back to school clothes at Old Navy, and you can see an example of what an email looks like with a link to the gift card. We went to the movies. You can buy Amazon gift certificates in up to $2,000 increments. And so kind of this is the first line of how you can live on crypto. And again, this isn't the end game. Just as the technocrats are going from where we are now to this absolute tyranny scenario, this isn't the end game. The end game isn't using crypto to buy gift certificates or to buy debit cards, but it's a step along the way. Then there's something called spritz finance, because people then always say to me, well, how do you pay your electric bill? How do you pay your mortgage? How do you pay your student loans? So there's a service called spritz finance that allows you to do all of that. You can actually pay your Verizon bill. You can pay almost any bill without a bank account directly using crypto through spritz finance. You can also get a spritz finance debit card that you can use for making purchases as well. And you can off-ramp crypto to a bank account. So again, I don't use a bank account, but for people that are starting out and you're trying to move your way down the continuum, using spritz finance is a good way to start paying your bills. And then, you know, for those bills that you maybe can't pay using spritz or can't pay using one of the Cake Pay gift certificates, you can off-ramp to a bank account. And this you probably can't see very well, but I just show some of the examples of, you know, power companies, student loan companies, mortgage companies, credit card companies. They have a very large number of services that they're directly connected to. And so again, this is, you can go to daylightfreedom.org. There's a tab at the very top of the page that says exit fiat, and this will give you a full breakdown of everything that I'm using. If you want to click on this is another QR code, and you know, I'll be here obviously the whole time. So if you want to come up to me, if you want to download this beta version of the Cake Wallet, I'm happy to give you some Zano for free just to get you started with privacy coins. So I'll give you a second to download that or screenshot that. How am I doing for time? Okay. Wow, 10 minutes. I'm actually going to have time for questions. Spritz is KYC, unfortunately, yes. I'll go through one other thing. So I mentioned before, so as we've been traveling across the country, I've been talking to not only, you know, individuals that want to get out of the system, but merchants that also would like to stop using fiat currency. I mean, merchants understand, I don't know if you realize this, you probably do, the dollar's lost up to 40% of its purchasing power just since COVID. So if you're a small business, you are being absolutely destroyed by holding on to the dollar. The problem is, and when I promote things like Monero or other cryptocurrencies, the feedback that I got from merchants is, listen, this is great, but I can't handle the volatility. You know, my margins are like 10%. I mean, it's great if it's up 40% one month, but if it's down 40% the other month, I can't make payroll. And so what I've come up with is this idea of creating something that takes all of the best elements of gold and marrying it with the best elements of cryptocurrency. Because gold has been an effective store of value for 5,000 years, it's just very difficult to be able to spend gold or to do any kind of online transactions. So the idea behind this is we're creating a token using Zano. So in essence, the tokens themselves have the same privacy that Monero has, but they're backed one-to-one for gold. And we're working with a decentralized network of vaults in different countries, and you will actually be able to redeem the token for physical gold. So this, I'm not a maximalist of any kind. I think maximalism is an absurd idea, frankly. And it surprises me that people in the Bitcoin community even do this. The only people that are maximalists are the technocrats. I mean, we already have 180 or so fiat currencies. There are over 20,000 different cryptocurrencies. So as much as I'm saying this, if you say, well, I don't like this aspect or this other aspect, the specific purpose for this is to find a way, after talking to a lot of merchants, to kind of bridge this divide so that we can actually get merchants accepting cryptocurrencies, because adoption has really slowed. I mean, Roger's been talking about people using it as digital cash, but the truth is, the last survey that the Federal Reserve came out with, only 1/2% of Americans used cryptocurrency to buy something in the last month, and that's down from 2%. So people have now bought into this whole, you're not supposed to use cryptocurrency as a currency. You're only supposed to buy it and hold it forever and never sell it, and somehow that's going to solve all the world's problems. But we need spendable currency with low transaction fees, and we need privacy, because again, the answer to surveillance is privacy. So I'm surprised I've got a little bit of extra time, but if in the full workshop, which is a 4-hour workshop, I go through in a lot more detail technocracy, who's behind this. I go into all of the details of the projects and who's funding it and the ideology behind it. I talk a lot about the failure of fiat, because the truth is, every fiat currency in human history has failed. There are no exceptions. The average fiat currency only lasts 27 years. And so what's odd is that we're repeating this same thing over and over again. So now everybody's saying, well, the dollar's going to collapse, but now BRICS is going to be the next dominant currency. What if we stop doing these state-based currencies? If it's never worked before, maybe we ought to give something else a try. So I talk a lot about that. Then I also go through in detail, we walked through some of the things that I use on a day-to-day basis. But in these workshops, we actually onboard people. I give people crypto as part of the workshop, and we're also going to be now onboarding merchants. So within the workshop, merchants will actually configure and set up their own websites to be able to take cryptocurrencies. The idea is, at the end of the workshop, I want newly onboarded people to crypto to be able to buy something, make a peer-to-peer transaction from a newly onboarded merchant, because that is the end game here. The end game isn't all of this stuff with gift certificates and everything else. The future is you get paid in crypto, you make transactions in crypto peer-to-peer, absolutely no third parties. That is our kind of answer to the draconian, technocratic, energy credit-based global system. And with that said, I do a lot of these talks, but I encourage everybody to go to PorcFest. Has anybody heard of PorcFest, Free State Project? So we're going to be sponsoring one of the main tents on the pavilion, and it's going to be basically Monerotopia within PorcFest. So it's going to be an entire week of talks and interaction around not just Monero, but privacy coins. A lot of people, a lot of OGs learned about crypto, including myself, from Free State Project events going back to 2012. But crypto's lost its way. So this year we want to bring the energy of 2012 back to PorcFest, except this time with privacy coins. This time we're going to focus on real peer-to-peer digital cash solutions that focus on privacy. So you can reach me at daylightfreedom.org, or I'm often on X at Aaron R. Day, or you can email me. That's the least effective way to reach me, at daylightfreedom.org. And I'm happy to take any questions. I guess we do have a couple minutes.
We've got time for one or two very quick questions.
This
This will be quick. I was trying to, well, I have downloaded both the Cake Wallet for Monero and then just the basic Cake Wallet. I was confused. Should I use just the Monero? I mean, do you have a preference? And then it looked like I could only pick one coin when I set up the main Cake Wallet. Am I able to pick more coins later?
Yes, you can create multiple wallets for multiple cryptocurrencies within the Cake Wallet. And that link that I had up there for a very short period of time is the public beta version of the Cake Wallet that includes Zano. So you will be able to have Zano and Monero in one wallet. I was actually hoping that was going to be fully done here. I was actually going to do a full workshop here, but I wanted to wait until that was completely finished.
Right, we got one more right here, Aaron.
Just out of curiosity, playing devil's advocate, what do you say to those people that say that Monero isn't truly private, obfuscation isn't actual privacy, and whether like CIA or chain analysis could run a node and track?
So, I mean, it's an ongoing battle, and I mean, that's one of the things I like about the privacy space is there are a lot of different companies, or not companies, organizations that are trying new technology. So Monero is actually upgrading their privacy and going to a new model. So it's a constant arms race. So certainly the CIA and the government is going to try to track Monero, just as they've tracked everything else. They have not been able to do it so far, but again, it's an arms race. This is why I recommend multiple coins and staying on top of what's going on.
All right, make some noise for Aaron. I think we got time for one more. I'll just add to that. Aaron is 100% correct. We're in a digital arms race. So they will come up with things that can crack the tools we have. And new people like the folks who are speaking here will come up with tools to protect us from those hacks. So there might be a solution that works for a little while, and then sometimes it doesn't work. We have to be adaptable. That's what's really important.
Thanks so much. This has been really interesting. I wanted to ask you, what are the major obstacles to, obviously, the end game of getting merchants to accept privacy coins would be epic. But in the meantime, we want to have mass adoption as quickly as possible so that we're not using the slave currency. So I'm wondering if there's a way that we could have like anonymous prepaid debit cards that could be tied to a Monero wallet or something like that, so that we could easily be able to use the majority of places that accept Visa or MasterCards or things like that, maybe under some kind of an anonymous name on the card or something like that, just so that you can quickly swap Monero for USD and then use that at most merchants. Is there anything like that that you know of that exists?
It's tough to do that because anytime you're dealing with Visa or MasterCard or any of those types of organizations, I mean, they're WEF partner companies, and their willingness to work on anonymous projects is zero because of the KYC AML laws. However, what I've been recommending and what I do in the workshop is I show people how to use Now Payments, which is a payment processor that you can integrate on your website, where you can take multiple cryptocurrencies, but you as the merchant specify a single currency that you want to get paid in. So there's basically a swap that happens behind the scenes. And so I think something like that, easy to use tools that people can embed within their existing e-commerce environments that add cryptocurrency, I think that's the way to get mass adoption. And this is the reason I did the gold-backed stablecoin, is that in talking to merchants, they would love to be able to take all kinds of different cryptocurrencies. They don't want to manage a bunch of different cryptocurrencies. And so they're using stable coins, but they know that's risky as well. So I think a gold-backed stablecoin might be helpful. Thanks.
All right, everybody, make some noise for Aaron Day. Thank you so much for being here, Aaron. Thank you so much, brother. We have so many really powerful and intelligent people in our community. And I was saying on day one, if tech is not your strong point, encouraging you guys to stick around. So hopefully you're learning a lot here. We have our closing speaker for today. We're going to have a panel after this, but Hakeem is going to be our final keynote. And I'll just share a little bit briefly about Hakeem. Who here is familiar with the Above phone? Check that out, brother. Getting the word out. All right, so those at home, if you don't know about the Above phone, go to abovephone.com and you can check it all out. It's de-Googled phones. That was the beginning. Now it's laptops. Then it's the Above suite with VPNs and email and so many other tools. And this is because we know we need parallel systems outside of those mainstream systems. That's really where Hakeem started. And honestly, today, the theme of today is really largely inspired by his work. He's been with the People's Reset, the Greater Reset, since the very beginning. And he's helped us curate and find a lot of really beautiful, powerful, free technologists. But as you may have noticed today, we've expanded. We do have digital technology as part of the conversation, but we've also talked about dodecahedrons and other forms of technology. Hakeem is going to talk to us now about what we can do and how do we handle addiction to technology and that whole front. So please give a warm welcome, big round of applause to our very own Hakeem Anwar.
Oh man, that intro got me a little emotional. It's been a really long ride, and I've been, as Derek mentioned, I've been intimately connected with the People's Reset. Everything I'm doing now is birthed out of this event, and it's really heartwarming feeling to see it grow and have all of you here. So I'm just so honored to be a part in every way. Yeah, funny story actually. The website for the Greater Reset was originally supposed to be the second Freedom Cell website. And as I finished making it, Derek was like, we're doing an event. It's called the Greater Reset. I was like, all right, we'll switch it over, and then it blew up. But right now, I'm focused on running a conscious technology company called Above. Could I please get my slides on screen, please? And this has been a tradition in my talks. I typically go off tangent. I don't talk about tech, which might throw you off a little bit. But it's important for us to review the work we've been doing every year, because I've really been trying to stay focused. And part of that is staying focused even among all of the distractions. Yep, so let's look at the year in review. So Above Phone is our first and primary product. This is a de-Googled phone. I won't harp on this for too long, but essentially this is the only phone you can use where you're not attached to Google and Apple. And it also provides you a ton of security. Even US-based law enforcement companies like Celebrite cannot break into this operating system, which is called Graphene OS, right? So when they get their hands on your phone, are you going to have your business ideas, your communications, are those going to be available and free for them to search through, or are you going to be protected? And part of our journey has been, how can we make this even better than big tech? Not just an alternative, but better than big tech. So it's been really important. Every month we go through a life cycle for the phone and we look at problems. This year we've done a lot. Well, one, we've launched the Above VPN app, as Derek mentioned earlier. We have a VPN service, for those of you who don't know. It's called a virtual private network, and it makes it seem like you're from another country, where crypto exchanges and stuff are legal. So it comes in handy for places like that. We've also added a photo gallery, you can see in the top right hand there, called Aves Libre. And it takes a lot of inspiration from Apple's photo galleries, because that is one of the things they do pretty well. And so you can see an infinite scroll of your photos, and it organizes it by app. It's really, really nice. Another thing we have this year is the Fudo voice input. Now, this is a completely offline voice input that supports over 20 languages. So, you know, you could be driving, you could be on the go, and you'll save so much time by just dictating your messages. And it does perfect spelling, perfect punctuation. It's really great. So in these, this may not seem like much, but in these little ways, you realize you can divest from big tech. You can get out of their octopi-like grasp over all of their services, and you can start to divest. But it takes a little bit of knowledge, a little bit of time. So that's why we have the phone, so you get everything at once out of the box. Another thing we did this year that I've been working on a really long time is Above Book. Has anyone here heard of Linux? Raise your hand if you've heard of Linux. Now keep them up if you've used Linux. All right, like all the hands went down. Actually, not that many went down. But all right. So Above OS, we developed this operating system based off the most advanced and decentralized operating system out there, known as Arch Linux. And Arch Linux, only the types of people that use Arch Linux, they typically wear a fedora. So they're very advanced, they're very savvy. And now even you at home can say, I use Arch, by the way. I use ours. That's a meme. That's a meme. I didn't expect people to get that. So with the above book, it was really important for us to have a machine where you didn't need to mess with a terminal. I know some of us want to be hackers, but most of the people don't have time for that. We're busy going on the land, growing our own food. And so it was really important for us to make it so you didn't have to touch the terminal once. So we have a built-in user interface where you can install software. And one thing I love about Arch Linux is that it's completely decentralized. So anyone can bundle and package a program for others to use. And that means you have access to more software than any other Linux distribution out there. Really, it rivals Windows and Mac OS. Because why? Well, because Windows and Mac OS try and funnel you through their app store, charging you nickel and diming you $3.99, $4.99 for apps that should be free and have been free forever on Linux. So that's why solutions like this are so important. And then this year, we also made it really easy for you to sync your data between your phone and your laptop using a software called SyncThing. So usually it takes a little bit to set that up, but you just click once. And then when you take photos, Bill Gates isn't judging your gym selfies. He's not there. He's not right there watching you. You don't need a third-party computer. This is all peer-to-peer, end-to-end encrypted file transfer. So if you want to check those out, go to abovephone.com/book. I had the link wrong in there, but you can check it out on that place. Support and education is so important. There is a lot to unpack here. I actually want to give it up. I've been trying really hard to get to meet our team in person, and we have two of our support engineers here today. Luke and Ile, are you somewhere in here? Raise your hand. They're in the building, and I want to give a shout out to them because they have really been crushing it. We answered 17,000 different support requests this year through chat. We've hopped on 500 calls. And guys, it takes a lot of guts to be a support engineer. It takes a special breed. You not only have to be a tech wizard, you have to be a motivational coach, and you have to be a counselor as well. There's a lot of tech trauma, and Lucas has been doing a great job, so I want to shout him out. Another thing that we've been working on is our data SIM. So this is our eSIM, virtual eSIM that is data only. It is not a phone number. I don't believe in phone numbers. The DEA is reading your text messages and trying to make you into Better Call Saul Goodman from that show. They're trying to trace your phone numbers across different phones to see if you are dealing drugs. There are secret programs that the DEA has, like Hemisphere. There are secret programs that the NSA has. None of it is private. So we need to move to internet-based encrypted communications. And so the data SIM is facilitating that. It's got extremely fast speeds. I was surprised, even here in Mexico, I'm getting 180 megabits per second. That's, yeah, I can hop on like a game with that, man. Cool, so if you want to check that out, go to abovephone.com/datasim. Now let's get to the meat of today's talk. Obviously that was some work. And so are there any counter-economists in the room? Counter-economist entrepreneurs? Yeah, I see a few of you out there. I love that. And one thing I feel is that we have an obligation to set the bar higher than the government can, than Fortune 500s can, than the establishment can. And it turns out it's not that hard. You just have to not fuck your customers over. That's all you have to do. But still, part of that is being willing to discuss the shadows of your work, kind of the darker sides of what you're doing. And for technology, the technology industry, that's technology addiction. It's also things like radiation. But you won't hear Google and Apple having a discussion about these things. You won't hear them caring about the epidemic of technology that's happening to the young people, how they're spending from 5 to 8 hours of phone a day, spending precious years of their life hooked into the content drip. And I blame the social media companies and I blame the big tech companies for not protecting them and for not bringing this to awareness. But I also think the freedom movement has something to say about it. And the stories we begin to concern ourselves with and wrap ourselves into. This fear is not healthy for us. And there are really great journalists like Derek Bros, Ryan from The Last American Vagabond, Whitney Webb, that have an objective stance, have a solutions-focused stance. But there are also a lot of people You kind of watch their content. It's all reactive. It's all fear-based. And that is not a dopamine loop I want to be stuck in anymore. So, thank you. So if you're here with me now, you know that these are patterns that we need to shed because we simply have too much to create. Let's talk about American cell phone usage. I'm gonna blow through this. No one likes statistics. So the average American, we check our phones 205 times a day, and it's about 5 minutes through your working hours. Every 5 minutes, 4 out of 5 people check their phones within 10 minutes getting out of bed. Has anyone done that? I know I have. Toilet's my favorite time. We've all done it. We've all done it. And so when you think about it, that's around 3 months out of the year. Right? That's absolutely insane. And this is something interesting. This is data from this app called Rescue Time, where they polled their 10,000 users or so, and they tried to look at it. And it's not just in one big fat chunk. You're not doing all your phone usage during that. It actually sporadically sprinkled in, like sprinkles on a donut throughout the day. And as soon as you pick your phone up, 50% of your sessions happen within 3 minutes or less. So that is the power of having a phone just near you, right? That's something to think about. And we're going to learn about actually the neurochemistry of why this happens. Let's talk about our young folks. This data comes from the National Center for Health Statistics, which is part of the CDC. So take this with a grain of salt, but this matches up with all the other data I've researched and picked up. About half of teenagers nowadays are using their phone more than 4 hours a day. That's not 4 hours a day, that's more than 4 hours a day. That could be arbitrarily anything. So that's scary. So what are they spending their time on? And it turns out it's the big tech companies, of course. It's always these guys. So divided, all teenagers about 5 hours, girls even more than 5 hours, boys about 4.5. Spending their time on the YouTube. Man, that YouTube algorithm is the sauce though, isn't it? Isn't it? Until it takes up all of your time. TikTok, Instagram, there are all techniques these companies are using to steal our attention, to steal our most precious resource away from us. And so one thing we can look at is this is a really good graphic. Maybe this part of the talk you want to share with someone close to you, someone you love. This is an 18-year-old's life broken up into months. And from, let's assume that they're going to live to 90 years old. Now, a lot of this time is already filled up. I mean, sleeping, gosh, sleeping takes so much time. Driving, eating, all of these things. But what happens when we factor in the average amount of screen time? Not just phones, but screen time into this. All right. Oops, guys, that's almost all of our time. That's almost all of the time we have left. So now it is so important for those of us in the freedom movement, for those of us in the truth movement that are trying to build parallel societies, to consider our time precious and to not let people fall victim to these dopamine loops. Why are we addicted? So this part of the talk I'm borrowing from this really good book called Dopamine Nation by Dr. Ann Lambert. And this is one of the most important neurotransmitters. A lot of psychonauts already know about this. It's the neurotransmitter involved in reward. But not just reward, it also activates, you generate dopamine in anticipation of a reward. This is actually what gets us to do things. And so there was a study done on genetically engineered mice. Sorry, Derek, I know he loves mice out there. Where they could not produce dopamine. And they put a little piece of food about the same distance away from the rat. And the rat would literally just sit there and starve. So without dopamine, we don't have the motivation to do anything. And today's neuroscience is showing that pain and pleasure is activated in the same part of the brain. So there's a very fragile balance between your dopamine. When you do get a dopamine rush, whatever you're doing, if you're taking a substance, if you're drinking coffee, if you're meeting someone, if you're on your phone, what comes up must come down. So as you get the dopamine rush, your body goes into homeostasis, and it also sends out inhibitors to make you less sensitive to dopamine. And that is where you kind of acclimate. This is why if you do a binge, or if you do like a Netflix binge, or you do a phone binge, you feel terrible the next day. That's literally the hangover. And once you're in this low state, guess what you want? You want to crave more dopamine. You're reaching for that phone. You're reaching for that piece of candy. You're reaching for whatever vice is your favorite. And that's a little bit scary. This is a part of the brain in the box called the anterior cingulate cortex. This is another study where they looked at the brains of internet addicted teenagers, and they found high levels, just permanently high levels of a inhibitory neurotransmitter called GABA. And they saw that it was just concentrated in these areas. Now, these areas, the ACC, is also responsible for our social connections. It's also responsible for getting us excited about social relationships. And this is my own observation, but I do notice people who use a lot of internet, like myself. It's hard for us to get at socials sometimes. So I have to imagine whether this is all related. This is a good slide. I'll go through this one pretty quick. But this is, we're talking about the cycle, right? The anticipation of the reward. And pretend the rat is you and the injection of cocaine is a nice post on Facebook or something that you're excited about. So the dopamine levels will spike in anticipation of the reward. When the rat sees the light, they'll get a spike of dopamine, and that will drive them to press the button. And when the rat doesn't receive a rejection, it actually shoots down. It goes into the lowest space. It goes below baseline. It goes below the baseline dopamine levels to get the organism to try and find the reward. Now, this is what makes it so scary. This is why when we get stressed out, we reach for these addictive substances, including the phones. This is also why the fear porn that we're seeing within the freedom movement is so problematic. When we get ourselves into a dark state, we're just searching for more content. Now let's talk about the elephant in the room, the social media companies. What have they been doing? How have they been tweaking themselves? They've been learning from each other. They've been shortening the dopamine loops. Instagram now has stories, Facebook has stories, YouTube has stories. Why? Because this is a 20-second dopamine loop now that they're going into. And no effort is needed to get to the next piece of content. You literally swipe, or you just sit there. You simply just wait. And this is really, really dangerous because it can just lead you to a binge watching session where you don't have to do anything. Another important piece of this is the recommendation system that begins tracking you as soon as you watch your first piece of content. It uses something called collaborative filtering, which is using your preferences and comparing them with literally every single person on the platform and what they're watching. So if you end up watching what someone else likes, you probably like what they like. That's why it recommends it to you. That's why these recommendations are so addictive. So some takeaways from that: to turn off autoplay, try and get rid of the recommendations. There are extensions you can use to remove the recommended section of YouTube, or you can use apps like NewPipe, which keep that hidden anyways. And try to do that on all these big tech platforms if you have to use them. So why are they doing this? Why do they want to get our attention? Well, because they're making money. They're also controlling your minds. And this is the worst part of it all. So YouTube makes $31 billion from advertising revenues in 2024. TikTok in 2020 did $27.2 billion. There's actually, most of their business is in China. It's a very small part of it is in the US. Then Instagram, similarly in 2023, there's $39 billion. Snapchat, $5 billion. So they're making so much money by optimizing this dopamine cycle. So what's the impact? Well, we know that phone notifications significantly impact your focus and performance in attention-demanding tasks. So what this study did is they had a game that people were playing, and they needed to match the patterns. But what they saw was even when there was a phone in the room, even if it was off, even if it was on airplane mode, it still distracted people from getting stuff done. Does anyone resonate with that? Does that happen? Someone's going to throw their phone out the window like a frisbee, like, whoosh, get out. And then buy an above phone, right? Smartphone addicted students also have lower levels of deep learning and flow state. And we all know, especially my musicians, especially my writers, that the flow state is the most important aspect of creativity. It's where we lose track of time. It's where we really pour our heart and souls into it. So the phones are affecting this. And I'll run through this. Heavy media multitaskers it's messing with their long-term memory. And now most people depend on their devices to remember. This is called the digital amnesia effect. Because we can Google it, we don't even bother remembering. It's the craziest thing. In fact, we know where to find the information rather than the information itself. It's really nuts because our consciousness, how our brain works is evolving and adapting to technology. They're adapting to each other. They're becoming symbiotic. This shouldn't go too far. There's also other problems. There's the posture. People who are using their phones for more than 4 hours a day. In this Korean study. Yes, this Korean study, they measured the craniovertebral angle, and that is smaller. So that means they have forward head tilt. That leads to neurological issues. That leads to neck pain. It also affects your respiratory function. It means you can't breathe because your shoulders are hunched over. And of course, there's sleep issues. And I mean, if you're using your phone before bed, you already know this, but people using their phone more have worse sleep. Across the board, looked at several studies. So let's talk about what is an okay amount to use your phone. Well, there is this Goldilocks hypothesis, which basically says, this is from the Office of Economic Collaboration and Development. They test all the 15-year-olds in the world, I think it's like 40 countries, and they also gathered some information about their technology habits. And they found that test scores actually improve if you use it up to 1 hour. Now you can see in this graph, the delta, the change in scores from people who didn't use computers at all to people who browsed the internet for fun. Scores went up by 25 points. So did the browsing social networks and video games. You saw a little bump in that. But after that 2-hour mark, it wasn't good. And similarly, for weekdays, you could use the internet for up to 1 hour, and it would boost your scores. Then they have the weekend is even greater. You can actually spend more time on the weekends. But during the week, during that deep learning that you're having at school, you need to not be distracted with your phone. That was a takeaway of the study. So that's 2-hour mark. And there's also the study of 40,000 teenagers in Korea. And they saw these associations. So up to 2 hours, a reduction in stress, reduction in dissatisfaction with sleep, which that's really surprising to me. Reduction in suicidal thoughts, depressive symptoms, substance use. And once you cross that mark, it starts going up, up, up. So it's Goldilocks. Not too much, not too little. There is a sweet spot. And we're all doing some amazing things on social media. I'm not telling you to be an extremist and to get rid of all of it. You know your situation best, but we need to find balance with tech. So in the book, Dopamine Nation, they talk about this digital detox, which I'm about to take this digital detox fast when I get back. It takes about 30 days to quit a bad habit, to quit an addiction, and reset your brain chemistry. So this will completely reset the brain. And at this point, you need to get rid of all the triggers. You need to separate or remove those offending apps completely, which I'll talk about more in a second. And withdrawals will happen. Withdrawals will happen. It's going to be a little painful. I would love to hear about your experiences, and I'll be sharing more as I do this myself. So how do you get into that deep work state? How do you do this mindful work? Well, the phone has to be in another room. There's no way around it. It has to leave the room. You can't be completely attached to it. And you need to schedule your phone use. So I've been starting to do this. I have an hour in the morning for communication on the phone and an hour in the evening. And that just keeps that time dedicated and focused to the phone. I get in, I do what I need to do, and then I get out. So it's all about it being intentional, because we all know how it is. You go into the phone for something, you get another notification. Next thing you know, you're scrolling. There's also some mindful mobile tools that you can use. One that I like from F-Droid, which is a free and open source app store, is called Usage Direct, and it tells you all of your usage for the phone. So you can see my apps are broken up here. Let's see. One memento while I get the slides back on screen. So yeah, you can use a screen time app. There's Rescue Time. There's Usage Direct, which is on F-Droid. Do Not Disturb. put your phone in another room when you're not using it. There's also the aspect of the sandbox, that's a Graphene OS feature. You'll find it on Above Phone. It's like having a phone within your phone. And then you can put all those distracting apps completely separate in a completely separate container on your phone. Yeah, let's see if I can get them back up here. Bear with me for a second. I'll just freestyle it. All right. Thank you. Thank you. I feel the love. Love all of you. Okay. I've got my webcam there. Give me 1 second. I'm almost back. I'll run through this. And then the PDF. Here we go. All right. Could you add my slides, please? There I should be on now. All right. Cool. So we talked about this. Digital detox, mindful phone. All right, we're almost there, and I have something really exciting coming up next. So just bear with me. So a mindful phone. At Above, we're working on a mindful phone. We have been asked over and over, please give us a phone that I can feel okay giving my kids and not having their time stolen, not having them go down dangerous rabbit holes. So we're working on this at Above. We're working on a solution that makes it appropriate and also has mindful tools built into it so you have control of your usage. And that's really what Above Phone is. It is a lot more minimal. Of course, you're discouraged to use big tech on it, but you can if you want to. So if you're interested in that, go to abovephone.com. I also have a few phones with me here, only a few left. After 5, after the panel, I'll be in the back room if you want to come hang out, talk, and learn about it. Now, let's talk about EMF harms. This is the second shadow, which we're all aware of. Bless you, and you guys being visionaries and futurists, you guys know about the radiation, which is everywhere. And there's many, many bioeffects from radiation. I've given talks for the World Council of Health Conference and different conferences talking about the effects on anxiety, depression, even things like fertility and cancer. So it's because these phones have Wi-Fi, cellular, and Bluetooth radios. There are all these different stacking elements that are so dangerous to us. So what we can do is we can have those same energetic defenses. But how can we have them if we need cellular data when we're out and about? And so that's what we're going to talk about here and now. I'm going to invite Dr. Lydia De Leon and Arturo Ponce de Leon. We have been collaborating on a study for the past few months. Give them a round of applause.
Thank you so much. So we're going to talk about something very interesting today that we have been collaborating with Hakeem. And so we had started a talk with Hakeem from last year, and we were sharing that we have different technologies that we can add to the phone. And as he said, I love the title Mindful Phone. So not only you have the Google private phone, but you also have a mindful phone that takes care of the radiation aspect for you. So we proposed that, and he loved the idea. And he's amazing because he's always looking forward to the next level for you guys. So that's how you do conscious technology. You never stop. You're always looking for what's the next level to increase like the result and do the best thing possible. So what we did now, and we're going to present to you the preliminary results, is a test that we did with a group of 15 people. We will finally have 20 people at the end result, and we already have the results from 15 people. So we used a special device that measures electrophotonic results from fingers, which means it will pass a very slight current from the skin, and it measures what is called a corona discharge. So literally you have the photons, it's like a dark box, so it's literally capturing the photons that your fingers are emitting. And what we did with this test is we tested different parameters that I will share with you in a bit. But basically we had one baseline, so we measured people without any phone, and then we had 2 above phones. Of course, I'm a mobile phone user and I love it. So we had two phones. One had our geophilia remedies, which I will explain in a bit, and the other didn't. And it was double blind. The phones looked exactly the same, so people didn't know what phone was what. So the test was that people would hold the phone over their head, like literally like this, attached to the head. That was really important. And
Talk about sacrificing themselves for science. They're
exactly.
Like, I have to do this.
I was just about to say that many people from the test group didn't want to do it because they actually have an issue. You know, they don't put their phones anymore like here, which was good, which means we have a good group, right? So yeah, and we had 1 minute exposure on a call. So it was already calling. We had the Bluetooth on, we had the Wi-Fi on, and the data. So what Hakeem was saying before is really important, because today we all need to understand that for anything, not just mobile phones, we're going to get a stack of things. Even in the economic financial business, that I really appreciate all the speakers today, yesterday, we have the same. We have like different stress issues to take care of. So today also in our homes, like, you know, we do holistic architecture. There's not one thing to take care of anymore. There are different things. So that's why it's important to stack solutions. So that's what we recommended to Hakeem, and he was all open for that. So we added 2 different solutions over the phone, which is the ones we've been using many years after, you know, so much research, because if you are there looking for solutions, you're probably having the same question we had many years. What does really work? You know, there is so much scam today. There are so many people claiming that, oh, we're taking care of EMF, but actually do the results show that? And very few have actually double-blind studies. So that's what we did here.
Just bring it up on screen again, please.
Okay, so what we did was we checked the different parameters, which were, for example, stress levels, energy levels, and we had all these also organ imbalances and how many organs were imbalanced. So this is what you see as a result, which is 15 people. So that's why you have all these graphs. And you have, with blue, you have no phone exposure. So that was the baseline. You have with red when you have the phone exposure without remedies, and the green was the one with geophilia solutions. As you can see, for example, here it's very easy visually. You just easily see that the red lines had the lower energy level. So what this is showing is that these are like a really big energy levels drop. So people's energy dropped significantly when they talked over the phone for a minute. Whereas when we had the geophilia remedies, we actually got even an increase of energy over the baseline. Why? Because the 2 main things that we used was sacred geometry. You guys heard of sacred geometry? Yeah. So we use sacred geometry solutions that have a lot of results, and we have been working with it. Arturo is expert, 20 years teaching and having books and seminars. And so the other solution is a patented solution with silica, and it has a specific frequency emission. So we combine these 2, and this was the result. And it's really important now to stack that. In our homes is the same. So we need to stack solutions for all the things we're receiving.
Yeah, something very important is check that graph. The stress goes really high. So when you're using your phone, when you're literally, having a phone call, what's going to happen is that it will distort all your electromagnetic field. That's what happens. And we measure it. You can see there in red, phone without remedies, and then phone with remedies. So what happens is that actually when you have the phone with remedies, it will neutralize it. So all these on balance, it will go down. You can see it there. So the stress really goes high.
So what we can see here is that with the geophilia solutions in green, we're almost coming down to the baseline. So you can see the body still has some stress, okay? So it's not completely bringing it to normal because the radiation is there, but the difference is huge. So it's almost as if there is no phone. And of course, we tested 7 different parameters. This is a lot of info, so we're just showing you 3 main parameters so you're not overwhelmed with the results. So this is the 3rd parameter we're showing for today, which is organ imbalance. So how many organs in the body went into an imbalance without any solutions when there was phone exposure. And you can see again, the red ones have the highest level, right? So the most imbalance across the organs was with the phone without exposure. And then you can see the blue and the green, they're almost very, very close. So this is again the average across 15 people, and you can see the green levels are almost next to the blue levels, whereas the red one, which is the phone without solutions, creates a huge imbalance in the organs.
So you might have thought, with all this radiation in the air, without any way to escape it, there was nothing we could do. Turns out there is something we can do, and it's the science of shape. It's God-given, it's our right. We can reclaim our power when it comes to using these mobile electronics until we have better solutions down the line. And I want to thank so much. You see why we're working together? These guys are geniuses. Yeah, so
Together we're
talented.
stronger,
Please give them a round of
guys.
applause. Absolutely.
We need to stack together our talents.
One more slide for us, please.
So these are overall the conclusions of the conclusions, like a very condensed number that you can see. So across all the different 7 parameters that we tested in 15 people, the phone without remedies had 107% deterioration as an average across all the parameters. And then when the remedies that we applied were there, that offered an 88% improvement across all parameters against the phone without. So as you can see, that's a remarkable result, which means that all the, let's say, imbalance that is created with a phone without remedies is almost brought to a baseline, as if you don't even have any phone radiation stress.
It's so huge, and we're still wrapping up the parts of the study. I mean, it's happening here in Mexico, and we're excited. Soon we're going to be launching a phone case. So with your phone, it'll already come treated. It'll already have the remedy applied, so you can use it without any guilt. And soon, at the end of March, we're going to be releasing a more in-depth paper. Let's go back here. And you can sign up to get this paper, this little ebook we're going to make on abovephone.com/research. Just go ahead and put your name and email in. And Geophilia and Above will email you getting ready for the webinar we're going to have at the end of March with more solutions you can use at home, and also giving you the scoop on this research.
Yeah, thank you so much, Hakeem. Thank you so much.
My pleasure,
for the
brother.
trust and for, because we've put so much energy, time, resources, to do all these type of things, because we all are going to use, phones maybe for the rest of our lives. So how can we minimize the effects that it has? And there are solutions, like there is, of course, we do sacred geometry, but there are many other solutions that order this field. Remember, 2 days ago, we were talking in our presentation about how we lived it here, remember? That how we as a collective, we resonate with this thing that is called phi ratio. So when we use phi ratio in technology, we have a more natural frequencies. So it's just magic, and we can create more healthy technology.
Thank you so much, Arturo. Thank you so much, Lydia. Woo, give it up. We are almost to our panels. I think I do have 5 minutes. I will take questions, a little bit of questions. I do want to mention we have a sale going on for the People's Reset. I have a few phones here. Take advantage while we're here in person, and we can shake hands. We can mix energetic fields. It's going to be great. I'm going to be at the table today at 5 p.m., so come see me if you want to learn more. And go to abovephone.com if you want to get it shipped straight to your door, whether you're in the US, whether you're in Europe, or whether you're even in Mexico. Don't ask me how we did it, but we're shipping to Mexico. And
I got a question over here, brother. Excuse me.
Hey, just give me one more second, and please follow us on Take Back Our Tech. We have a Telegram channel, and also takebackourtech.org. We publish writing on there. Someone asked a question about IRS and Monero. Totally answered that in a long article. Sorry about that, Derek. Who we got?
Over here. Great talk. Thank you. I have a question about your phone technology, because the one thing I'm concerned about with all these people looking regeneration, exit, whatever, is creating the competition environment again. So you've got great technology, but I'm aware of another phone company with similar privacy technology. What interoperability with potential competitors are you working on? Or are you open to other technology and looking at other technologies?
I mean, as much as possible, right? I mean, we pick open source software. I mean, maybe I didn't explain this well enough, but we're using all open source software under the hood. So whether it's SyncThing, whether it's compatible with Android, as long as their system isn't closed source and proprietary like Apple, we should be able to interface with them. All of the apps you can use on our phone, you should be able to use on their phone as well. Cool. Come talk to me later.
All right. I'll add to that real quick, and Hakeem can just add a moment to this before we get to the last question. But not all so-called privacy phones are equal. There are scams out there. I wouldn't support anything associated with Eric Prince, a former Blackwater military contractor, but you see a lot of shows out there promoting certain phones. So just want to mention that.
Thank you for saying that, Derek. And yeah, absolutely. You should always look to the software. There are a lot of companies that are trying to do it. They see that privacy is all the craze. Look at the code. So we're using all open source technology under the hood, and yep, watch out for those scammers.
So a very quick question. I think quite a few people are aware of the dangers of the blue light in all the screens. Are you by any chance working on a phone or a tablet or something without the blue light?
Cool thing is that Android has they call it night mode, a blue light filter, where it turns the temperature of the screen really, it gets super orange. People get freaked out when they see my phone. They're like, what is this?
I got a last one here.
Okay.
Somebody asked online, are you not going to do this with Apple phones? I think I know the answer, but why are you working with Android and not Apple?
Yeah, so I mean, Apple is a completely closed source ecosystem. I'll come back to your question too, I'll finish it. It's a completely closed source ecosystem. You cannot do this with Apple iPhones. The hardware is locked down. The software is locked down. For God's sakes, they won't even let you use a browser engine. It is so locked down that they want every single penny they can get from app developers. App developers have to pay tremendous amounts even to test on the platform. So what I'm predicting is, I mean, the EU is saying that they're going to require Apple to sideload apps, but I'm not going to hold my breath for the government to do their thing. Vote with your money, as John Bush always says. Vote with your money and use a software ecosystem that respects you. It's super, super important, guys, especially as we're seeing more enforcement of these draconian laws. Back to your question about red light. So screens can only do so much. The modern phones nowadays have OLED, which have really high levels of blue light inside them. The best thing you can do is get blue light blocking glasses. Blue light blocking glasses, those will actually filter out 99.9% of everything. It'll be better than anything you do on your laptop, on your phone. You know, those help a little bit, but that's where the buck ends with the glasses.
All right, give it up for Hakeem.
Thanks, everyone.
Everybody. Powerful stuff. Wow. I'm sitting over there listening to Hakeem and Lydia and Arturo talk about their study, and I hadn't even heard about this. And it's such a humbling feeling to see the people we can bring together and be a part of just curating this and bringing people to this stage and sharing this information all around the world. It really is some next level stuff. So please just, another round of applause for all of our speakers and everybody here. As you can tell, I am continuing to lose my voice as fast as possible. So I'm probably going to take a break after this, but we're going to take a short break and play a video from one of our friends while we get our chairs up here for our Take Back Our Tech panel. This video that we're about to play is from our friends, our partners at Monerotopia. Who's familiar with Monerotopia? Happens in Mexico City. Yeah, we met a lot of friends there. Some of them are here. And I've been a speaker there a couple times. And so we are getting more and more aligned. They were actually going to be here, but it didn't work out. And so they wanted to send a video and they're basically announcing the dates for their event next year, which are going to be right after the People's Reset 2026. So they're kind of hoping people will, do both of them. And we're going to have a special discount code just for our audience here. And it's good for 1 month for anybody who's interested in attending Monerotopia in Mexico City. So let's go ahead and play that Monerotopia video.
Estamos en Ciudad de México. Monerotopia es una reunión en realidad de gente que está interesada en privacidad digital, gente que está interesada en poder traer los beneficios del efectivo, algo muy latino, al mundo digital. En el mundo digital todo pues está muy observado, muy vigilado y se pierden ciertas calidades, ciertas libertades, ciertos derechos civiles en el mundo digital cuando no tienes un buen dinero privado. Entonces Monerotopia está interesada en avanzar ese tipo de tecnologías y enseñar y educar a la gente para que puedan adoptarlas. Y ha sido una muy buena conferencia, la verdad que sí.
Monerotopia is one of the 2 annual Monero conferences that's happening in Mexico City. Mexico City is amazing. It's the perfect place for a cryptocurrency conference. There's 20 million people here and they're open to new ideas. We have merchants here who are accepting Monero, and it's vibrant, it's energetic, it's global, and it's a great place to be. So come on out to Monerotopia if you haven't been. It's worth the trip.
I think when we come to events like this here at Monerotopia, we get to share, exchange ideas, learn new things, and we get to take those back home and share them with our local communities. And that allows the cause of liberty, of financial freedom, of decentralized ecosystems, parallel societies. These concepts get to spread across the planet like wildfire in a very, very beautiful way. And it's because of events like Monerotopia.
Monerotopia 2024 is awesome. This has been a great time because for me, I care about solutions, trying to make a better world, and I think private cryptos like Monero are part of that. And it's just cool to be around people who are interested in how Monero can provide privacy and freedom and how we can grow that here in Mexico where I live, but also all around the world. And yeah, I think it's just a great place to come connect with like-minded people and experience some really cool moments.
El evento realmente me pareció muy motivador. Creo que siempre el ver personas que comparten esta filosofía de libertad, esta filosofía de privacidad digital realmente siempre motiva, porque te das cuenta que no eres la única persona y que hay gente trabajando para alcanzar en este caso un futuro libre, un futuro privado. Entonces creo que si lo tuviera que describir en una palabra sería eso, motivador.
Yeah, Monerotopia in this place is it's a really cool venue. It's a really awesome place. Mexico is definitely a great choice. It's very easy for a lot of people to come here. A lot of people aren't able to get into the U.S. due to restrictions and visa requirements. So it makes a lot of sense to do it here. It's a lot more, I guess, free in the sense of there's less government surveillance, there's less pushback from government for certain things. And I'm excited to see crypto spread out into more of these countries that recognize the need for it even more so than countries like the United States. So really great to be here, and it's been awesome.
This is my first Monerotopia, and it was an absolutely phenomenal experience because it kind of blends the greatest thinking. A lot of the talks are like very technical talks about the cutting edge of privacy and privacy coins, Monero and others. But then it's also in this beautiful open air market where people are able to buy goods and services using privacy coins. And so it's kind of living privacy coins in action. So it's a phenomenal event, and it's been a great opportunity to meet people from all over the world with a similar mindset.
This ecosystem and this conference overall is absolutely amazing for getting people to understand exactly what we're doing and to understand that there are ways for us to achieve freedom in our lifetime, and that's largely through leveraging technology, leveraging parallel finance, and leveraging freedom tech to contribute that. So yeah, I'm really hopeful and optimistic about the future. I think more and more people are getting involved in various initiatives, and I think it's a really beautiful thing. So really happy to be here.
Monerotopia. All right, give it up for Monerotopia. So I was at the last Monerotopia not too long ago in Mexico City. Incredible event, extremely powerful, very much a community-oriented, solutions-focused event like the People's Reset. And having been in the Bitcoin space and crypto space for quite some time, originally it was the cypherpunk ethos, which is like a cryptography, anarchism, and the Fed type vibe. And of course, the Bitcoin space, at least the majority Bitcoin space, has shifted to more of like, we want to get rich and work with big venture capital firms. And Larry Fink's the best thing since sliced bread because he's pumping our bags. This event is not like that. And Derek actually is working with them, and they came up with a special coupon code to get 15% off on tickets. You have 30 days to do that, about a month to do that, although maybe you should just buy them riding high on the vibe from this event. Monerotopia.com is the website, monerotopia.com. Great event, very welcoming for people that are crypto advanced and for new folks to the crypto scene. Monerotopia, as has been shared on the stage multiple times, is the #1 cryptocurrency to use as far as counter economics and agorism go. Okay, let's go ahead and kick off the Take Back Our Tech panel. I'm going to ask each one of the panelists to introduce themselves, share what organization they represent, and then if you could share, and let's make this answer quick, the #1 tool that you don't always talk about, that not a lot of people are familiar with, that you would recommend for freedom people, the #1 technology tool that isn't talked about a lot, that you guys don't talk about a lot, so don't say above phone. So yeah, what's your name, what organization you're part of, and then the #1 untalked about tool that you would recommend people checking out.
Yo, one of you has to say above phone, though. Just kidding. My name's Hakeem Anwar, founder and CEO of Above, also founder of Take Back Our Tech. Honored we used that name for the panel. I write about technology when it comes to educating people on how to use free and friendly technology. I've written guides on Linux laptops, how you can switch, and also de-Googled phones. You can check that out at takebackourtech.org. Also recently wrote about how the IRS collaborated with Chain Analysis on a $20 million contract to try and trace Monero transactions. So check that out. And one technology that I guess I'm gonna give you my secret sauce because John asked, is Have No Rito, which is a peer-to-peer exchange. And there's a lot of different ways you can get in and out. You can get fiat, you can get a bank transfer when you buy and sell Bitcoin. Someone can also send you cash in the mail, which is quite a vibe, waiting for that cash in the mail. So yeah, those are some tools. Have No Rito, HAVENO space Rito, RETO.
Hey guys, really nice to be here. You probably saw my talk just a little while ago. My name's Sterling. I didn't really introduce myself because I figured a lot of you were already friends. But I've been working in the crypto industry or crypto adjacent for the last 10 plus years. But I came into this space as an anarchist and as a voluntarist, primarily because I got arrested for possession of MDMA to the tune of 500 pills and about 30 grams of cocaine. Thought I was going to go to prison for a long time. That experience opened up my eyes and made me question the system. And as a result of that, I came into contact with people calling themselves cypherpunks online. Sometime around 2017, 2016, something like that. Anyway, that's my story. Now, as far as a technology is concerned, there's a few, but I have a friend that lives here in Mexico that I worked with for a long time named Ernesto Huerta. Probably a few of you know him. He has a company here in Mexico called Prestabit and CryptoMex, and he has this cryptocurrency credit card that, yes, it does use Visa, but Ernesto's a very clever guy, and what he figured out how to do was route around being a direct link to them. So this credit card has super high limits, where I think you can put up upwards of like $200,000 to $500,000 on the card, and the KYC limits are extremely low, and it's all completely legal because he used a lot of different workarounds to connect all these different companies. The guy's extremely brilliant, and I would recommend going to, I think it's cryptomex.mx. I think you can also go to just cryptospace.com, and you can find the card and you can look into it. There is one caveat. He typically doesn't allow Americans to use the card. So, but if you have a residency or citizenship elsewhere, you can check it out. Highly recommended.
Hi, I'm Aaron Day. You probably heard my talk earlier. I'm the CEO of Daylight Freedom Foundation, also a fellow at the Brownstone Institute. I got into crypto in 2012 and was a political activist for a long time, realized that wasn't the way. So dropped out of the banking system, started living on crypto in 2019. And for the last couple of years, I've been traveling around the country warning people about CBDCs and promoting privacy coins and exiting fiat and exiting the banking system as the solution. One technology, I did mention it already, but it's something that I don't talk about often, in part because it hasn't launched yet, but I think it's an important technology moving forward. It's called confidential layer. And this is a technology that will allow you to bridge your Bitcoin, Bitcoin Cash, or Ethereum into Zeno without having any third-party intermediaries. So this is a way to take public blockchains and make them private. You will also be able to use this same technology to swap coins. So you'll be able to use this technology to swap from Bitcoin to Bitcoin Cash or Ethereum to Bitcoin in a way that doesn't involve KYC. So I think this is going to be a very important technology moving forward.
Hello, my name is David Perez Negron, also known as P1R0. I was mostly just an anonymous free software developer, and I work in few projects. One of the leadings that I have is the DECA token, and right now we're starting with a project called decentralizedscience.org, where we want to decentralize knowledge. And one of the technologies that I'm following a lot is DarkFi, and I'm admire a lot Amir Taki and his team. These guys are a step above because they're already preparing for the worst case scenario. And one of the most important things that you should have is communications, secure communications. And with their infrastructure, they're already reaching that. I think they released their alpha like today or 2 days ago. And I hope to collaborate more with them and with other open source projects from these guys.
Hi, everybody. I'm Kenny Palorentano. I've been unbanked since 2008. I've been living out of a backpack since 2015. Most recently, I've been running the Free Ross Now project. We got Ross out, and basically helping radicalize meme coin people through that. And in terms of things that people need to know about, I mean, DarkFi is a huge one if you haven't looked into it. I mean, just not even technology really, but just things like Velt Gold to buy gold and silver. Great. They like up to 30K, I want to say, without KYC. They take Monero directly. Travala.com for buying flights, hotels, all this stuff. Like there's just the accept Bitcoin.cash. Look at that. Or Monero, was it Monerica? Just look at all the ways to spend your crypto already without having to go to fiat, without having to off ramp at all. I could list off many of them, but that's one of the most important things, I think, is just using the currency as currency instead of using it as something else and then swapping back to government currency to make your payments.
Excellent, excellent. Okay, so let's go ahead and get this elephant in the room out of the way. I'd love to hear the viewpoint of each of the panelists when it comes to artificial intelligence. Is it the case that as freedom people, as privacy advocates, we should avoid it, throw the baby out with the bathwater? Or do you believe there are uses that agorists, freedom lovers can gain and leverage this tool for our own benefit?
I'm actually already using AI. So if you message me on Telegram, you'll get a reply back. That's a joke. It's a joke. So yeah, it's this is kind of a tough one, but I do think AI is important enough for us to know how it works, to know how to use it, and to quickly load all of the knowledge we need onto it. And now there's different software out there, like software like Ragflow, or different ones that allow you to create a vector database of different knowledges. So you could throw PDF documents into it, you could throw a table into it, all this information, and then you can ask the chatbot, and it will answer. It'll actually go look up the answer in the vector database and spell out a good answer. So you could use that with different open source models that you host yourself. And that's the only way I'd feel comfortable about using AI. If it's local, if it's on my machine, and of course, if it actually is telling me the truth and not giving me some bullshit. So I think this is a really important effort. I know there's people like Mike Adams who are trying to centralize or load up large language models with this knowledge. I think all the content from Green Med Info, CRG's Green Med Info, is on that one, Dr. Mercola, and I'm sure there's some other LLMs the other panelists can talk about.
Yeah, this is a tough one. I agree with Hakeem. Like him, though, I also use AI and machine learning a lot in my work as a person who writes on a daily basis. I use Grammarly, which has some AI components for editing. I also use ChatGPT from time to time. So I don't have a problem on a fundamental level with using artificial intelligence as a tool to enhance our work. But I think this is going to go a bit further than some of Hakeem's concerns, but I think a lot of people are worried about the possibility of artificial general intelligence, AGI, coming onto the scene and then destroying humanity in a very Terminator-esque kind of scenario. So that's the only thing I think we really have to worry about. But here's the deal. There's no guarantee that we're going to reach that scenario. I think a lot of people have assumed automatically that we're going to get there, and they've also assumed that there's not going to be a way that we can defend ourselves or prevent it. I really recommend reading a book by a gentleman named Max Tegmark called Life 3.0, where he makes the case that there's ways that we can build fail-safes into our technologies that will prevent the emergence of AGI or at least provide some safeguards. So I really think it's an open world. I do think we have to address this issue and analyze it and have some risk management that's going to be vital to pushing forward as AGI potentially comes into existence.
I think AI is a lot like crypto. I mean, you can have CBDCs that are complete surveillance coins, or you can have privacy coins. It's the same in the AI realm. And so I'm looking for AIs that are decentralized. And actually, we often say in crypto, not your keys, not your coins. I think the idea of having a self-custody AI is a good idea. And that's something that Mike Adams has been talking about, which Hakeem mentioned. His AI that he's releasing is called Enoch. I'm very much looking forward to that. He actually put my book in there, so it's trained on that. But it's something that you can download on your computer. You don't have to be connected to the internet to use. So, I'm inclined to move towards, projects that are open source, projects that are decentralized, and in that manner, AI is a good thing.
Okay, well, it helps me develop faster, but is following his talk. I totally agree. The thing is that as free software, either you control the software or the software controls you. So is as with AI, either you control the artificial intelligence or the artificial intelligence controls you. There is development in cryptography like full homomorphic encryption that can help ensure that. Also, I agree, decentralization and open source of LLMs and other type of AI-based systems is the way to go for our side, for our freedom, and the consensus of the minds of the decentralized science, where we agree what is closer to the truth is how we should actually train these models.
Yeah, mostly just a lot of echoing all of this. Obviously, AI is a tool, just like any tool. It can be used in very helpful, constructive ways. It can be used for control. It can be used to limit people. Obviously, it can make you wildly more efficient just using one little tool here and there. It can also open doors. Last year, I released like 10 different songs in different genres as someone who doesn't make music at all, with AI doing all of that. I would just say things like GPT, the number 4 all is a great app you can download, and you can load all sorts of different LLMs into it and have them offline hosted on your system. It's open source and it's not tied to any one. It's LLM agnostic basically. And there's a thing called Morpheus AI, which Luke Stokes and a bunch of other old OG cypherpunk guys are building, and it's very decentralized. It's an open source protocol that has also, you can basically has a token, and there's like, you can get paid for creating AI agents, like designing them. You can get, the AI agents can receive funds for what they're doing. It creates like a circular economy around it, where whether you're writing code, designing an agent, or providing compute power with your device, you end up getting rewarded out of the system and everything. And while keeping it all in the people's hands, you have the keys to your agents.
Right on. Are you still holding out on AI, old Derek? Okay, all right. He recently used it, probably timidly, to translate some documents from the 1700s he shared for the online audience. I use ChatGPT regularly, but just be aware, ChatGPT is the big tech of the AI world, and that information isn't secure. Another great app is Venice.ai. Venice.ai. It's made by this guy, Eric Voorhees, who's an old OG Bitcoin freedom guy. Okay, let's talk about crypto. To open the conversation here, first, how many people hold cryptocurrency? As in they have some, they've bought it. Okay, keep your hands up. Out of that many people, how many have their crypto in a non-custodial wallet, not an exchange? Okay. Okay, that's good. So then let me ask you this. How many people regularly purchase goods or services with cryptocurrency? Doesn't have to be all the time, but you've done it and you do it every day. Okay. All right. So a significant majority of the audience does not use crypto in commerce regularly. So let me ask the panel, if you could say, if there was one thing that you could share with those that are still holding out that would motivate them about the importance of using crypto, or maybe you think it's not that important, which I don't think is the case with this crowd, but what is it that you would say to them, why they need to learn to use cryptocurrency specifically in commerce to purchase goods and services? Why is it important for them to go ahead and make that leap?
It's because all of the amazing people and projects you see here are just one statement away from being debanked, and then there won't really be a choice. And there is enough information out there on all of us to get us debanked. And when that happens, we need to make sure we have robust systems to exchange with each other, whether it's food from the farmer's market or buying your next piece of land. We at least have to try. We have to give it our all.
Oh man, so this is one that's really near and dear to my heart. I mean, one of the main reasons is because when we're in the traditional financial system, when we're in the banking system, when we're using these FIs or financial institutions, they have all of our information, all of our data. They can censor and freeze those accounts, just like what happened to the truckers in Canada. You remember that. Anybody who pushes back against the system can potentially be a victim of that system. So I always recommend using cryptocurrency to regain financial responsibility, financial autonomy, financial sovereignty. This is part of what makes us human, the ability to transact without having sensors and monitors and jackbooted thugs looming over us all the time. So crypto unleashes that. But I will just add a note of hesitancy. Not all cryptos are great because there's still a lot that play into the surveillance state. Our friend Aaron here has mentioned it numerous times, that Bitcoin is basically a surveillance panopticon coin. So we don't always want to do our due diligence and understand what currencies work best, like Monero and Xano, and that give us our cypherpunk privacy and that match that ethos on a fundamental level. It's just so important for the future and us getting to where we want to be.
If you value free will, you need to use cryptocurrencies, because right now what we're facing is a movement towards a global CBDC, a single global currency backed by energy credits tied into social credit scores. And the only way out of that is to exit that system. So to me, this literally is a battle for free will. So if you don't want free will, I mean, which, there are some people that may not want free will, but if you're interested in free will, you need to use cryptocurrencies. And if you want something that is going to defeat the surveillance state, you need to focus on privacy coins like Monero, Zeno, and others.
I will go beyond and say that not just privacy, but total anonymity. It's important in the procedure of you and I agreeing on exchange of medium without having an intermediary. But also in another way, it's a good way to finance anonymously free software development that gives more encryption, cryptography development, and freedom tools.
Can I ask one follow-up? You drew a distinction between privacy and anonymity. A lot of people would see that as the same thing. What do you mean by the two being separate?
Well, it's a very well-discussed theme, but by anonymity, I mean that you can even interact with someone without even knowing who is that one person. And we can even, if we don't even know who we're interacting with, but we can use collateral smart contracts in the process or things like that. And privacy is like, okay, I have privacy. I know that you're like in, it's a strange example, but that you're taking a shower. I know who is there, but I respect like your privacy. But anonymity means not knowing who is that person.
Thanks.
Is that okay if I make a little comment quickly as well?
Yeah,
so
sure.
Privacy has been defined as well by the cypherpunks as the ability to selectively reveal yourself as you see fit. Whereas being anonymous, you're completely off the grid, off the map. Nobody knows who you are at all. And that's the goal of strong anonymity guarantees, or what the cypherpunks have referred to as such.
It's important that you spend crypto, receive crypto, you use it as actual currency, because otherwise in your brain, it becomes a stock that you're holding, hoping it will go up in value. Or you're holding, hoping that everything else will crash and you'll have your Bitcoin to protect you. Or your Monero, or whatever. If all that you're doing is setting it aside and hoping that it's gonna do something good for you down the road, then one, you're not using it, you're not actively promoting it, you're probably not going to be aware of how to use it when it finally comes time, unless you're practicing, especially because these tools are always changing as government is shutting down Samurai Wallet, or as governments are, it's an ever evolving game. And if you're not using it, if you're not being active, then you're not going to be as aware of what's happening. And you're likely going to just look at it as, a lottery ticket or something, or an investment, and it's not what this is supposed to be. Obviously, the dollar and other fiat is going to continue going down, so crypto in general is going to continue going up against that. But if that's all that you're looking for, then you're kind of missing the point.
I want to add one more thing to that. So I think I might be pulling this number out of nowhere, but I think $1 billion is the market value for the darknet markets, which for those of you who know, that's where people go on the dark web to buy guns, to buy fake passports, and to buy large quantities of drugs. And most of those people are still anonymous and not found. There hasn't been mass arrests. So if it can protect them, it can probably protect us from buying a few chicken eggs.
All right. Okay, let's talk about Bitcoin. The very first cryptocurrency ever, started in 2009, the network, pseudonymous creator Satoshi Nakamoto, he, she, they, them. And in the original days, we thought Bitcoin was essentially going to replace the dollar as a global payment system. It was intended to be very simple, decentralized, permissionless, meaning you don't have to ask permission from a bank, and governments can't stop it. We thought it was going to be more of a peer-to-peer electronic cash. That's what's written in the white paper, which describes what Bitcoin is. Since then, the value proposition has shifted, and there's actually been a co-opting or a hijacking of Bitcoin to more of a store of value, digital gold. The big legacy financial institutions have got involved. So I'd like to open up to the panel, and let's start with Aaron. Can you describe just quickly what someone means when they say Bitcoin has bin hijacked. And then I'd like to ask each of you, do you still see value in Bitcoin as a medium of exchange? And also, do you see it as there's value to hold it as a way to preserve wealth, grow wealth, as a store of value?
Sure. Bitcoin was originally, the head of the white paper is peer-to-peer electronic cash. I mean, this was the clear original intent. It was designed to compete with Visa and MasterCard right out of the gates. Store value was never part of the narrative. And there was a group called Bitcoin Foundation that it was a nonprofit that funded the project because it's an open source project, and they kind of kept to that. That group ran into some difficulties, and so all of a sudden others stepped in, including MIT and a group called Blockstream, and the narrative all of a sudden shifted from digital cash to digital gold. And in fact, this MIT group, headed by a guy named Joi Ito, who took money from Jeffrey Epstein. You can't actually make this stuff up. Not only did he fund the changes to Bitcoin to make it digital gold and to really hamper Bitcoin, but he funded all 3 US CBDC pilot projects. So just as people are now saying, oh, you're not supposed to spend Bitcoin, they kept it stuck at 7 transactions per second, while MIT funded CBDC pilots that can do 1.8 million transactions per second. So it was clearly hijacked. Now, as to the question of whether that is a good thing or not, as I mentioned earlier, I actually view Bitcoin as slow, expensive, non-fungible digital surveillance gold, because you can actually track Bitcoin. We know you can use chain analysis to figure out who owns what Bitcoin, which means that Sterling's Bitcoin is different than mine. You could put his on a blacklist and mine on a whitelist, and now it's no longer fungible. So I personally don't even like it as a store of value, because I think you're signing up for a hijacked narrative, and the intent of that narrative was to distract people while a CBDC was being built.
Real quick, Aaron, fungibility is such an important term when it comes to crypto and privacy. Can you explain what that means for folks that may not be familiar?
Well, with fungibility, it's kind of like the dollar. $1 is the same as another. They can be interchanged. And in the case of Bitcoin, because you can identify individual Bitcoins and flag them, then they're no longer interchangeable with one another.
Does anybody else want to hop on?
Yeah. Cool. Okay, you can hear me now. Yeah, I'm going to echo a little bit of what Aaron said, but I want to dive a little deeper into what we called the scaling wars. I was actually working with Roger at Bitcoin.com 2015, 2016, when this hijacking started to take place. And one of the most egregious things that happened was there was rampant censorship in the space. And that's how the narrative switched from Bitcoin being peer-to-peer electronic cash to digital gold. On forums like Our Bitcoin on Reddit and bitcointalk.org, anytime that somebody came into those chat rooms and wanted to talk about scaling Bitcoin, expanding the block size, and making it usable as cash, those posts were immediately censored. Those people were met with hostility, and a lot of vitriol was spewed in the process. And this was something that Roger pointed out again and again. And a lot of people, they condemn Roger for being kind of an aggressive guy, but can you blame him for being pissed? He was really looking at Bitcoin as being the savior of our species in a lot of ways, from being able to end centralized banking, to allow people to have the free flow of money and transactionality. And now all of a sudden that's being completely hijacked. So there was a huge move of the narrative during this time period. And there's a lot of different parties to blame. Some of them are still kind of unknown, but this is ultimately what happened and why we ended up where we are today.
And I would say Roger wrote a book called Hijacking Bitcoin, which I highly recommend everybody read. And he was arrested about 3 weeks after that book was published. So do with that what you will.
Does anybody else want to add something?
Yeah, so yes, we all agree, and it's been pretty clear publicly for a long time that Bitcoin from the white paper does not really exist as Bitcoin anymore. People with Bitcoin Cash say that that's it. People with Bitcoin Satoshi Vision say that's it. Either way, both of them have lost so much of the network effect, so much of the hash power. They aren't nearly as relevant at this point. In terms of peer-to-peer cash, it's more the privacy space, because any transparent chain, as you mentioned, it's not fungible anymore. They've already got a lot of the miners for Bitcoin and Ethereum going OFAC compliant. They're censoring transactions. It'll still go through eventually because it's not all of them yet, but it's a lot, and it's growing every year. They're KYCing more miners, and they're getting more of them to be compliant with these rules. And that doesn't seem to be turning around. And certainly as BlackRock and all these other firms and governments start investing more in the coin themselves, in the investment side, they're certainly not going to let their grip on the hardware side, on the network side, slip. Like, they're only going to want more and more control. And we know they have infinite data centers because they have the infinite money printer. So yeah, you can hold Bitcoin if you just want to see your fiat value number go up, but at some point you might not be able to get it out even. And there's everything is going to go up. Again, the dollar has no bottom, so everything else kind of has no top.
Yeah, I'll add on just a little bit about what Kenny said. Thinking about how the narrative has changed too. There are now people like Michael Saylor who are out there spewing all this institutional erotica about Bitcoin needing to be completely centralized in all these institutions. You have BlackRock, companies like that taking up all this Bitcoin MicroStrategy, which is Saylor's company. And so what we're seeing is the institutionalization and the commercialization of Bitcoin. I'm not saying that there's necessarily a bad thing. There is some degree that will happen with mass adoption. But when they want to try to centralize it on all of these centralized providers and financial institutions, that takes away financial sovereignty and responsibility. So that even goes beyond the realm and the fold of what we're talking about in terms of it being hijacked. Now it's like hijacked triple over. You know, it's a tragedy, really. It's sad that it happened, and I was sad to be there to see it progress like this.
I just want to add one quick thing, and this is my philosophy on investing. Money is a measure of our energy. And so often, I mean, I've seen people that were anti-vaccine, but they have a 401k that has Pfizer and Moderna in it. And so from my perspective, I look at investing as I want to put my money in the things that I want to see in the world, as opposed to hedging and actually putting my money towards the things that I don't want to see in the world.
Right on. Thanks, guys. So I'll add that I'm still holding Bitcoin personally. I'm not buying Bitcoin at the moment. And Catherine Austin Fitts recently said that she thinks this Bitcoin strategic reserve thing is an effort to allow a ton of buying pressure for all these Bitcoin billionaires to sell their Bitcoin and then convert that into land, gold, or real world assets. And so when I heard that, so the effort is to jack the price up of Bitcoin and then buy land and real world assets, I was like, sounds like a pretty damn good idea. Maybe I should ride the wave. So I still personally see value in Bitcoin as a wealth play, preserving wealth, growing wealth. Just be completely aware it doesn't have those cypherpunk roots that it has. And if you use it in the Agora, because it's transparent, those transactions could eventually come back to you. Unlike, of course, Monero, which is 110% private. Okay, I'm going to ask one more question, and then let's open up for questions from the audience. Let's make this one quick. If you could just say what your favorite encrypted messaging app is and why, and also be aware too, there's stuff that's superior and more technical, but maybe just let us know if this is something that's more technical and perfect, or maybe it's more user-friendly, but there's some shortcomings. Number one encrypted messaging app and why.
I got to open up this one. It's my long love and passion for XMPP, which is a 20-year-old, over 20 years old, decentralized communications protocol, which there's a ton of different messengers out there. I honestly have messenger fatigue. The reason why I stay faithful to XMPP, because it's one of the only protocols where you can be completely responsible for your own communications and for also your friends and family. You could run your own XMPP server. There's even a service online that you basically just click and it spins one up for you. It's called Snicket, S-N-I-K-K-E-T. And then you can invite your friends with or family with a link. It works on any device, and it allows for end-to-end encrypted messaging, video calls, audio calls, file sharing, but it's direct one-to-one. It's not for group video conferences. So I really love this protocol because Google Hangouts and WhatsApp used to be built on top of XMPP before they switched it, but it's scaled to millions of users. It's been out there. It's completely free software. You have control over your own XMPP server. And this is kind of the same way that email works. You have an account with a provider, and just with XMPP, we will have free communities one day, each running their own messaging server, and our messengers will federate with each other. So it's the dream. XMPP is one of the only messengers I see having that qualities, but of course there's going to be pros and cons. So pass it to someone else.
And that comes pre-installed on above phones, yeah?
And that comes pre-installed on Above Phone and Above Book as a part of Above Suite.
Got to look out for our fellow business owners.
Cool. So this is just the mini shill, and I would be remiss not to mention it, but I'm a huge fan of Status. So if you go to status.im, you can download the Status app. Status is a messenger app plus a cryptocurrency wallet. A lot of it is still a work in progress, but the guys are working really hard to push it forward and have more of a commercial product. But one of the key things about Status is it's built on top of one of the protocols that's part of the Logo stack that I was talking about earlier. It's called Waku. Waku is a complete peer-to-peer messaging protocol that leverages nodes. We get a little bit technical and uses something called RLNs, or rate limit nullifiers, to prevent spam on the network. So you can do these peer-to-peer messages that can be as private or even as anonymous as you want it to be. So it's the Status app is a beautiful app, and it's coming along. I recommend at least downloading and checking it out.
Well, I use Signal. I don't even know if that counts as being encrypted. But when I woke up this morning and went to my smartphone, within 10 minutes of waking up, I was scrolling through my feed and I saw that DarkFi just launched their messenger app. So I haven't done anything with it yet, but that's something that I definitely want to play around with very soon.
Yeah, well, I follow up with the same thing I said about the Dark IRC from DarkFi. It's not just because of the app, but also because, and the cryptography, which is awesome, but also because of the community, where they have channels of philosophy, of mathematics, of development, all on their whole app, and they will add more apps on that system. And I think it's also the community that makes the messaging app.
They've mentioned a bunch of great ones. There's plenty. I would just say an important thing to remember is that anything you feel really needs to be hidden should be kept off of any servers. Your device probably isn't safe enough. Your internet connection probably isn't safe enough. The other person's device. So take precautions and don't assume that any of these things are going to keep you private, right? Like if something is that level of operational security needed, like where you're actually worried, like, oh, this conversation could get me arrested, don't have it on a device. Have it in person with all the devices somewhere else turned off.
Okay, all right, can I take one of those? All right, we're going to do... Check. We're going to do audience questions now. But nobody said Signal. Is everyone out on Signal these days? Oh, you said Signal. You use Signal. Okay. Session. They like Session over Signal. Okay, let's hit some questions. Mr. Howard.
Hey, I read a really excellent interview the other day. Last American Vagabond had Mark Goodwin on, and he was talking about Tether being a kind of closet CBDC, and how that's being pushed as kind of like the stealth way of getting a CBDC in without calling it a CBDC, but it would be a private CBDC, and it would not have any of the theoretical protections of a government-funded CBDC. I wanted to get the panel's take on that.
I mean, I'm working on an article about this. I think it's possible that Tether could go down as one of the biggest financial scams around. It's gone from basically nothing to $140 billion. They haven't been able to pass an audit. They're already working with law enforcement. They're already freezing coins. And something to worry about is Trump's new Commerce Secretary, Howard Lutnick, both just invested $600 million in Tether, and his company manages all of the treasuries that allegedly back the Tether coin. So big red flags about Tether. And when it collapses, you could easily see it like in a collapse, all of a sudden, hey, there's a bailout and it becomes JP Morgan coin, or it could become a default CBDC on its own.
Add something that Aaron mentioned briefly in his talk, that a key point here is that Tether is also just completely centralized in the fact that they can just seize funds. I've actually worked, so through the process of working for an exchange, I've experience with using blockchain forensics like Chainalysis and CipherTrace. And so not only is that blockchain traceable, but because it's traceable, because it's also centralized, Tether can actually freeze and seize those funds and completely stop them in their wallet. So it's the complete opposite of a cryptocurrency as we understand it. It's a complete surveillance coin. And I could see very easily where it could be implemented and used as a covert CBDC, which would be actually horrible. So I recommend everyone stay as far as away from these coins as possible, these stable coins.
It's not just Tether either. USDC is also freezable. There's Twitter accounts that follow these coins and just make posts when blocks of coin have been frozen, meaning that they can't be used ever again, right? These things there's the new Ripple one recently. There's a bunch of them that are effectively, they are CBDCs in all but name, effectively. They're totally transparent, totally trackable, totally controlled. They can actually stop it from moving and stuff. And yeah, they've got them in various different chains. They've got them in all these different flavors to make it look like there is, some competition there, to make it look like there's not this one big answer. But yeah, really, they're all kind of doing the same thing. And yeah, Tether's been a huge, pretty obvious scam for a decade plus at this point. The amazing part is just that the SEC hasn't gone after them. I would imagine whenever they're ready to pull the rug and cause a huge collapse to scare people and usher in the next wave, like they have with central banks in many places previously, I think Tether is going to be a huge part of that. Is they'll file against them. They'll show, oh, look, it's all fraudulent. And that alone, it's like the third largest crypto by market cap. That alone would tank the market $1 trillion or more instantly.
And a stable coin, for folks that aren't familiar, predominantly it's a cryptocurrency that's pegged to the value of $1. So 1 Tether equals $1. And there is a decentralized one called DAI. I don't know if anybody has any qualms with that one. I think it's a pretty solid project. No?
Right now, DAI is backed up also in a percentage by Tether too. So at the end, it's a reset button, backdoor. Just as that's the backdoor of crypto, we have the religion of crypto, which is Bitcoin. But I remember a lot, once I think of the first version, a friend of mine told me about that. I was writing smart contracts, and I go okay, well, the smart contract, you can see it publicly in the blockchain, right? So I go into the Etherscan or whatever, and then I just found 2 functions. One function says whitelist, or it was blacklist, and it's how is that different from a CBDC? That's a question. If you get whitelist or blacklist, and then they block your assets.
Well, look at how far we've fallen. We started out with peer-to-peer digital cash with no third parties, and now people are celebrating a digital token that's backed by fiat that can be censored.
And props up United States dollar hegemony in Latin America. Okay, yeah.
Well, maybe this is very, okay. Maybe my question is too silly, but I want to learn, and I think you are the best teachers for this. Mexican, I was born in Sinaloa, and we have a lot of problem with the cartels that are with the money laundering and that. So I'm not very well educated on this. How can you do something about it, with this money, with these currencies, to avoid crime in this, or is free for the criminals to use it? I don't know if you understand my question.
Yeah, this is a really tough question and really sad around these issues, because some of the things you can buy at these darknet markets, like the weapons and stuff, you could use to defend yourself, or it could even be sold by the cartel. That's part of the anonymity and privacy. You don't know actually what it is. Being a voluntarist, I believe that we all have the right to defend ourselves, but we definitely don't have the right to hurt each other. And so the only thing I could think is we need to build our communities as strong as possible, even if it comes to financial exchange, self-defense, community resources, so that we can counteract the actions of the gangs here in Mexico, and also the gangs in the United States, which are the police. And so I think that, yeah, we've got to use these tools in a way that honors them, and so that we're looking out for each other.
Yeah, this is a really, really good question, and I actually hear this a lot. It's kind of funny. I think back to Timothy May, the cypherpunk crypto anarchist godfather, somebody once asked him one time, well, what about all the criminals who are going to use this technology? And he very frankly just said, too bad. He just said they're just going to use it and you're going to have to deal with it. But here's the thing, what he talked about, they've always used what he referred to as the 4 horsemen of the infopocalypse. Were basically terrorists, abortionists, pedophiles, and thieves, right? So how do we prevent it from getting into these hands? Well, I like, frankly, what Ross did with the Silk Road, where he built the Silk Road, the darknet market, and actually limited the things you could buy. Like you couldn't buy child porn on the Silk Road. You could buy weapons, but you can only even buy those for a very short time. So he tried to very much limit access to certain types of technologies. So we can do this through reputation systems. We can do this through various controls on our platforms. We can sort of try to police this ourselves a little bit so that this kind of stuff that actually is horrible and awful and we don't want to see in the world from getting out. But I think at the end of the day, we have to put our own freedom, our community's freedom, and our society's sort of above fear that this is going to get into the hands of criminals, because most of these criminals are always also created by governments anyway.
The number one currency for human trafficking, drugs, and war is the United States dollar, and there is no second closest. In fact, I saw something in my feed yesterday that somebody from the Treasury Department was fired because they were basically not turning off the tracking at the Treasury Department level. So, the answer to how we solve crime in things involving the cartel would be to end the drug war. And so the problem is, this has been weaponized against the people. So this whole idea of know your customer and all of this tracking started in 1970 with the Bank Secrecy Act. And the whole idea at the time was, we're going to implement this Bank Secrecy Act to track money and stop money laundering so that we can stop organized crime. You can see how well it's worked out.
Me being as a Mexican, also from this state, Michoacan, which is as chaotic as your state, I remember some people of this cartel thing saying like, you know who are the biggest cartels in the world and who will work for? It's called the Democrats and the Republicans. And that's the leaders, because imagine, do you actually think a person that works in the countryside with primary school education can actually handle all these operations around the world, like the Sinaloa cartel or any cartel around all the world? Do you think they have all the capabilities to manage all that distribution systems? They need special education. Who educates? Well, sadly, no, because I do not have a price. Sorry.
Yeah, it's pretty simple. If you're using the banks, you're helping them print more money out of thin air, you're paying taxes to their system, you're actively supporting the drug war, you're actively supporting human trafficking, you're actively supporting genocide. With crypto, they can use these tools as well, but at least if you're using the right ones, if you're staying out of the replacement fiat centralized nonsense, you're not actively feeding them just by using it. Like, they don't benefit from a Monero transaction. They benefit every single time you swipe your credit card.
Thomas Jefferson said, I prefer dangerous liberty to peaceful slavery. And unfortunately, if a cryptocurrency has the ability to stop some people from using it and not others, we'll quickly find ourselves in the group of people being stopped. I got to get a question in the back. So sorry, guys. I don't want to just give favor to the front. I don't want to be a frontist.
Hi. So this is a question from someone very ignorant on the subject. Well, actually, there's two questions. So first one, if I want to start using crypto as a currency and I don't know anything about it, are there tutorials? Where can I go and learn how to start having transactions? And the second one, also from a very ignorant place, why aren't any of you talking about XRP?
We'll do the second one first. XRP is the banks. It is totally centralized. They created it. They run it. It is their thing. They want it. They love it. It is not. It's Yeah, it is designed to be worse than Bitcoin can get, no matter how much they hijack it, basically. So I think we probably mostly all agree on that, somewhere around that with XRP. The other side, I mean, Hakeem and Derek and I have done workshops online about this. I know John has workshops online about this. I'm not sure if you guys, I mean, there's lots of people putting out kind of intro level stuff. You can find it on YouTube, BitChute, Rumble, Odyssey, or reach out specifically, like if you're looking for how to use Monero specifically, how to use, Mimblewimble on like whatever it is you want to be using, there's going to be lots of guides for it.
So about XRP, I think he said basically it's a coin from Wall Street, and you cannot expect anything from them anyway. Yeah, you can profit, you can just join the pump and anything, but you're profiting with people's blood, with people's life, and this is how these people think, work. And the other thing about the resources to understanding, it depends the level of understanding or the use case that you want. You want to just basically sell goods or services, or you want to like get as a cryptographer. There are many things. They're pretty didactic, is that the word? Things like I like to follow sometimes like ComBureau, but also especially when they teach like the basic things, or there are other sources in YouTube, but once they reach the point that tells you, you know what, trust me, give me your money, I will handle it, then you're reaching the same thing. The most important thing to know is that you are your own bank, and you hold your keys and your coins, and you never give access to your coins because that's, or your keys, because that's it's not your money in your wallet, is not your money anyway.
I second everything on XRP, so nothing more to say on that. But actually, what my wife and I do is we've been going around the country doing CBDC workshops, where half of it is explaining the CBDC threat, but the back half is actually teaching people how to use cryptocurrency. And the target audience is people that have never used crypto before. So most of the events that we've been doing are actually, it's been predominantly boomers. It's been a very interesting process, but I've been living on crypto since 2019. And so what I do is I show people how I actually do that. And we walk through it step by step. So people walk out of the workshops with a crypto wallet, with one or more cryptocurrencies, and an explanation of how to start using it in your daily life. And then we're adding to the workshop onboarding merchants, so that merchants will, in the workshop, be able to configure their site to be able to take crypto. The goal being at the end of the workshop for someone newly onboarded to crypto to be able to buy something from a newly onboarded merchant, so that we can get true peer-to-peer digital commerce.
Yeah, so Kenny nailed it in terms of XRP, and this is why we're not talking about it, because it's an institutional finance coin. It was, a funny story about this. It was originally built, I think Brad Garlinghouse is the CEO, and they developed it actually to connect all the financial institutions, so all the banks have one kind of single currency that talks to each other. But something funny about this, that's a tangential side point. I spend a lot of time on X Spaces, and I go into, there's a lot of XRP communities where they're trying to pump it up and talk about it. I think half the time they have no fucking kind of behemoth they're actually trying to uplift. So they're just getting in there. They have a casino mindset. I get so upset about this, because all they're talking about is number go. Half these channels, number go up, win moon, win Lambo. Fuck that, win freedom, bro. Like, why is that the focus? So and they don't even care. Like, there's no value, there's no principle. It's just all worried about when number go up, and they're supporting probably one of the worst cryptocurrencies in the whole ecosystem. No wonder Brad Garlinghouse is actually pitching XRP and trying to pay to have it part of the strategic reserve as well in the US, which is just abysmal, right? Okay, so in terms of education, I think these guys all covered it really well. There's a ton of educational resources. I really recommend Aaron's stuff at Daylight Freedom. Also, I still support Roger's work. So Bitcoin.com has always been a really nice portal for education and learning in the crypto space. Also, keeping up with the news, I recommend using their site. I still use it all the time to keep up with the news. So highly recommended.
Yeah, shout out to these guys. They've got it nailed down with XRP. So the best way to learn is to practice. Start right away. I mean, we're going to do this after the panel, and I think it would be nice if someone was on stage guiding people to how to set up their first crypto wallet. Maybe it will be with Cake, maybe with Exodus, maybe with Stack Wallet. But once you do it once, the process is the same. And hopefully after this event tonight, we can do some small transactions between people, trading pesos, doing the conversions, and getting Bitcoin or Monero back. But practice makes perfect. And really the most important thing to worry about is your seed phrase and keeping that safe. So if you have control of that, you have control to private key that allows you to spend any coins left in your wallet to simplify things. So as long as you keep that safe, you'll be fine. And then just knowing how to generate new addresses and getting them between you and your counterparty in the transaction. So I think we should do a lot of practice later today, and maybe someone would want to help facilitate setting up a wallet.
Right on. Okay, and I'll just share, having taught thousands of people how to do crypto, one thing that I found is a lot of people feel overwhelmed by it all because there's a lot of unknowns. And sometimes there's some fear caked in and some anxiety. But to download and install a wallet, Cake Wallet, we keep bringing up, you can get it on the Play Store. You can also download it on a laptop. There's no way to screw it up. So you basically just download it. Now you have the wallet. And the key thing is to make sure that you back it up by writing down what's known as the seed phrase. And then from there, you're onboarded. Then you just have to find something to buy or ask somebody to sell you some Monero for $20 here or whatever. And then it kind of demystifies it. But oftentimes we're like, it seems so complicated and so overwhelmed, but there's literally no risk to just set up a wallet and try to buy 100 pesos from somebody while here at the event. And there is a networking thing taking place right after this where you guys can do just that. All right, let's give a round of applause to the panel, ladies and gentlemen. Great job. Okay, there's a sponsor that we want to hear from. Of course, this event, it's been thrown out, cost $40,000. Oh, thanks. All right. Okay, good. Yeah, I'm going to pay for lunch that he bought us the other day with some Monero. But yeah, the event, it costs money, it costs time, it costs stress, blood, sweat, and tears, probably a little tension. If Derek and Miriam are anything like me and Rebecca, there's probably some tension between the couple putting events on like this for times. It's a lot of work. And so the sponsors for this event really make it possible, as do donations coming in from the live stream. But Hakeem here is going to share about one of the powerful sponsors that's helped to make this event possible.
Thanks, John, for that amazing panel. And I want to shout out Sedona Quantum Consciousness. Woo! Let's make some noise. They're one of our sponsors, and they're an incredibly high vibe group. You can go to their website, search for Sedona Quantum Consciousness. But if you're ever in Sedona, which is a beautiful place, it's kind of my second home in the United States. And Mark Zunzak spoke earlier this week about breathing, and he's got a lot of amazing future technology there. I've gone in person several times to the Tesla biocharger meditations. You can drop in to get your breathing checked. And I mean, they just throw the best parties. So if you're ever traveling in the United States and you're going to Sedona, check out Sedona Quantum Consciousness. And Frequency Fridays. Ecstatic Dance. Let's get it. Thanks, everyone. We're going to go back to John.
Okay. All right. What a great day. Give it up for the Take Back Our Tech Day, day number 4. Can you believe it's already been 4 days of this? Are you guys meeting people? Yeah? Some new friends, new associates? Are you guys taking notes? Do you have plans to already apply some of the knowledge that you've soaked up during this event? Yeah. All right. Make sure you take away from this event, when it's all said and done, some concrete action items. Because like Derek always shares, it's not just like a pep rally. What's most important isn't this event, although the connections are extremely important. It's what you do with the information that you gain when you get back home. And I do just want to make one more pitch to our friends that are watching online. There's tons of summits, conferences, and events, and almost every single one of them puts the live stream behind a paywall. Even the Exit and Build Land Summit has a live stream behind the paywall. But this event is different. This event is 110% community oriented to help you guys that are watching to be empowered to take your activism, to take your exit and build game to the next level. So if you've gotten any value out of this event whatsoever, I highly encourage you to donate and contribute so we can continue to make streams like this free into the future. So again, $5, $10, $20. For those of you that are maybe doing a little better financially, $500 would have such a powerful impact when it's such a grassroots team. So head over to thegreaterreset.org/donate, thegreaterreset.org/donate. Vote with your dollar. Express your gratitude by supporting this incredible movement. All right. Thank you so much, everybody watching live. We really appreciate you guys. Thank you to the audience at home. Stick around. There's going to be